Hello and welcome to another episode of the Vault Dwellers Podcast. I am your host, MrMac. With me, as always, artist extraordinaire Gary Moore. Gary, how's it going?
Hello, it's been great to be here. Episode, God knows what, 11, 12, 13, don't even know what we're on anymore.
Once you're past 10, you stop counting.
Aye, that's us. We're big time now. Do you know this is 6 months in? We've been half a year. Half a year we've been in. We're
Half a
working.
year.
We're encroaching on that birthday. We're getting there. We can see it. I can see it in the sunrise. It's coming.
So, the way it's happened for us is the sun's gone down. And you'll hear that gentle chuckle in the background, fighting for the title of Artist Extraordinaire, but winning comfortably is Hoodie. Hoodie, how is it going?
Oh, absolutely. I give away the title. It's all yours, Gary. Enjoy it. Have fun. I can't wait for episode 300 of this podcast where we outdo Beyond. Beyond.
There we go. Beyond.
Beyond.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, honestly, I've missed this dearly. We were here last month, obviously, for the Halloween episode, and Gary hosted, which was great. I enjoyed that myself. I enjoyed being able to listen back and hear somebody else go through all the rigmarole and stuff. So a silent round of applause because it'll not get picked up on the microphone, but to your Gary, because we've done a good job carrying the podcast, and hopefully we'll arrange some more to come.
Clap, 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 clap.
There you go. Hoodie's ever thinking of the most creative ways to show us all up. Anyway, so we've got this episode is going to be our favourite games that we've played this year. If you haven't checked a Vault Dwellers episode out before, then it's pretty simple. We are two friends that have come together. It's been a kind of 10-year dream in the making, actually, as we come and bring this kind of podcast together, and we've roped in a good friend from across the pond in Hoodie. We're going to be covering all kinds of topics, video games, movies, and all kind of life issues and queries and everything else in between. So we won't keep too long because I think this one is going to be a long one. We're going to do 5 games. Basically, we've got a few, things that we wanted to work within. One of them being, that we've rolled credits, that we've effectively beat the game in some way or other, for the list, and then we'll drop into some mentions at the end of the episode where it's maybe a game that we felt like had we played it, it would have made the list, or we played some of it, but not enough yet to qualify for it. We don't typically, keep up with every single game that releases in any given year. We do have some very busy lives, so hence the reason why we're not doing Game of the Year. We're just doing our favourite game that we played. Like I said, check out the episode Gary's was hosting last month, which was an absolute banger, Halloween special.
Spectacular.
Spooktacular indeed. We've done a wee review of Hocus Pocus right at the end there as well. And we're going to do a very similar approach to the Christmas episode, which is next month. And that one, we're going to do a Christmas memories and then a little review of Home Alone right at the end. So I'm looking forward to that one. And if anybody's interested as well, actually, before I get kicked off, we did have a wee discussion recently about some merchandise. So keep an eye out for that in the new year. It's a wee bit early, but we're just priming you so you can keep your pennies by, so that you can try and save up for a wee jumper. So we should just get absolutely started. We usually do what we've been playing, but I decided that it's a wee bit too long a segment, especially in this kind of topic where you're going to be kind of going around and discussing probably some of the games that we've been playing recently anyway. So I'm going to ask our Hoodie. We're going to mix things up in terms of the order, and our Hoodie's going to go first. He's going to get us kicked off with his number 5.
Kicked off the internet, not kicked off on the show. So my number 5. Now, I'll preface. I love indie games. Big fan of indie games. They're my bread and butter. I adore AAA games here and there, but I like the special kind of games that make you experience something you haven't experienced before, and you couldn't do it in any other medium. And I think that is like just totally encompassed in my number 5, which is Superliminal, which I think is how you pronounce this name. This name,
Yeah, that's it.
I'm fairly certain. But Superliminal came out in 2019. Its developer was Pillow Castle. It is a puzzle game. It is on all consoles, and I highly recommend checking it out if you have Game Pass, which is where I played it. This game is unlike anything I have ever played before. I played this, even though it is not a online co-op game, I played this side by side with our friend Ben at Please Be Excited everywhere. You can find him at pbxmerch.com.
Go to their website.
Sells kids, apparently.
We played this side by side where he would solve puzzles at his rate and I would solve puzzles at mine, but we tried to keep up as best as possible. And when we got to a place that was just too hard for either one, we would trade off on like, here's a little hint to get through here instead of looking up a game guide or whatever.
That's
so
really
we
nice.
work off each other. We played all through the night, and by the end we thought we were going crazy because this game is insane. It does things that I didn't think were possible in games. It is a puzzle game that plays with perspective. So if you think of one thing this way, you should probably think of it another. I'm trying not to spoil any puzzles, but just for one small example at the beginning of the game, there is a scene where you walk into a room and there's nothing but a large cheese wheel. There is a really tiny house, and in the sky there is a moon, and it's so far away and it's really tiny. And you go, well, I can't lift this cheese wheel. It's too big for me. And the house is too small to go inside. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. But after a little thought, I changed my perspective. And I thought, well, the moon seems far away, but is it? And I look up at the moon. I press X. I grab the moon and I pull it out of the sky. And it is now in my hands. And I can make it bigger or smaller depending on where I'm looking in the world. And so I make the moon slightly bigger, and I can now jump on the moon to jump on the cheese wheel, etc., etc. And you do this kind of style of puzzle throughout the entire game. And nearing the ending, again, no spoilers, but nearing the ending, those puzzles get turned up to like a 10, and you think whatever it was you were doing before was insane. Well, now it's on a whole other level and a whole other scale that I can't even comprehend what's happening half the time. Like I said, Ben and I were losing our minds by the end because it was just so psychological, and you get into this. There is also a story throughout it, and it's explaining the kind of the Portal-esque environment that you're in. I would say it's along the lines of a Portal 2 and a Stanley Parable in the story style that it's going for, where you may very well be a test subject, but you're not entirely certain. And going through it felt like a crucible by the end, and I felt so much like overwhelming sense of like, it was just so astounding. I could not believe what was happening. I don't think I've experienced that in a game maybe ever, where I think the closest is I believe it's called the Ashtray Room, which is in Control, which is another incredible game. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend. But they do something in that sequence that was just so like mystifying and beautiful and creative. And I thought, wow, how could that ever be topped? But then to make an entire game of that one sequence was a moment for me in gaming where I thought, oh, games are beyond anything I could do, anything I could experience. I couldn't do this in the real world. I couldn't watch this in a movie the same way I was doing it for myself and experiencing those puzzles and solving those things and making me have to change my perspective just because I thought a certain way. This game told me that I didn't have to think that way, that things were limitless if I really, really opened my mind to that. And I thought it was so beautifully woven throughout. And by the end, I did like take a sigh and be like, wow. I do think the entire experience was amplified by playing it with Ben. It was an incredible experience to go through that because he would solve a puzzle and he'd be like, oh no, I'm here now. And I'm like, oh, well, wow, you solved that really fast. And then it became like a little mini competition even, where there was a meta game to it. And, I can't obviously recommend everybody do that because it's not possible for everybody to do that. But, he was on PlayStation and we were on Party Chat. I was on Xbox, and we were just going back and forth that way. And it was really amplifying the entirety of that game. But on its own, it is such a special and moving moment in gaming for me, where I thought, I don't think I'll ever experience something like this again. And it's very specific, and it's very interesting, and it's unique in what it does. And I couldn't recommend that game more. That's why it's on my list. It's one of the greatest experiences in gaming I'll ever have. So I really love Superliminal.
I think I've got it on my, you can do that play later thing on the on Xbox. I'm pretty sure I added it to that because it's something that I definitely wanted to try out. I mean, it kind of ruined the cheese level for me, but I'll forgive you.
I tried to pick something that was at least 15 minutes in, so you...
That's it. That's fair. That's fair. I actually did start laughing. I was trying to hold back, to be honest, but when you were talking about it, I'm like, it fucking sounds like he's on drugs or something.
Yeah.
Like,
because it just feel like it.
It's. I mean, I've seen it.
Dream.
I've seen like the a quick video and stuff. Like I know, like I understand the perspective thing, and understand, because obviously it's like you can rotate something and then look a certain way, and suddenly the thing's humongous and whatever else. I understand the actual kind of logic behind it and the idea behind it, but it was just funny, like you talking about a cheese wheel in the moon in a house, and just, it's like, it sounds like the start to, like a kid's joke or something.
It really is. It honestly is one of those things that you not only sound insane while you're talking about it, but it is insane to play it, and you do feel like you're going crazy at points. I mean, there's one maybe midway that Ben and I spent, I'd say, a good hour and a half trying to solve, because we were just so closed-minded to what we thought it would be. Like, it has to be this. There's no other way. And ultimately, when we like took a breath and we're like, oh, if we had just been X, Y, and Z, we would have solved this. But we were so used to how video games work, and this did something that just did not play by those rules. So I thought it was an incredible experience.
Good start then for the number 5. And to be honest, I think I'm going to throw it to Gary, but my list is probably quite indie strong as well. To be fair, with one or two indie titles at least, so you're in good company. I'll say that much by kicking off with an indie game. But Gary, you're number 5, mate. Let's not keep the audience waiting too long. This is what they came for.
Can I just say, Hoodie, I just love creamed my pants listening to you there. The way you make games sound, I literally play any game that you talk about, just the way you talk about it. It's just...
Gary's writing it down. He's like, right, let's go and buy this. Is it on sale?
Honestly, it's like ASMR, honestly, every time Hoodie speaks, honestly.
Wow,
so, anyway...
Gary.
Hoodie, do you want to read my list for me?
Absolutely. Number 5.
So, my number 5, I'm going to hit it with is Super Hot.
Another Super game.
Yep. So, it's developed by Super Hot Team, and it came out the 25th of February 2016. So this, just a disclaimer, this year's kind of been a catch-up year for me. Not even much as a catch-up, but just games that I wanted to replay. It's been a slow year, as everybody knows. Starting to gear up now, but it's been a really slow year for me for gaming-wise, so I just kind of went back in my backlog and games that I've maybe wanted to just play again. So this is what my list is going to be like, so strap yourselves in. But anyway, Super Hot, brilliant game, absolutely loved it. I love it for its on and off type gameplay. It's a game that you could spend 10 minutes with, or you could spend half an hour with, and that was perfect for like me having the kids and maybe jump on for a few wee minutes during the day when I can. I love the kind of fast paced gameplay. You know, it's a first person shooter but it's got puzzle elements. It's all about like stopping time. If you don't move, nothing will move. If when you move, everything else moves. So it's this kind of puzzle shooter. It's kind of like Hotline Miami, but you're in first person perspective, and it's more of a puzzle. I think it's a really fun. It's extremely addicting game when you if you get to this one level where you just can't get by it, and it's like trying to find the next thing. Like, oh, what if I throw my shotgun? What if I shoot my shotgun? What if I grab this brick beside me? You know, it turns into this little game of try to do the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, and it's a brilliant game. And I just think it's got a forgettable story. That's one very negative about it. It's got this Matrixy type story that I just don't like. I just was skipping past all the parts. I couldn't be less interested. But the actual gameplay itself is probably one of the most fun things I've actually played this year. And yeah, that's my number 5.
I wanted to ask you, sorry,
Aye.
Hoodie, just a quick one. I see that the whole kind of, I think I've asked you offline before, but for the purpose of the podcast, obviously you played the non kind of VR version, but you have played the VR version. Like, what was your kind of? I know you're not the biggest VR fan, just due to motion kind of sickness and stuff like that, but you did have a really good time on Super Hot. Like, how did the two kind of stack up?
So I would say the VR version's harder, and the puzzles are probably better because you can use your VR. You know, I always bring up that level with you that the actual part was that you're one side and you have to like throw your gun right across the map and try and catch it. Which you never. I don't think you ever get something that's that intuitive with the non PS the VR version. Sorry. I don't think the challenges are as hard as I said. Like if you got stuck at something, it was always like 2 or 3 times, and that was you. No bother, you would get it by then. But the VR was definitely harder, which was good, and I think they used a lot more. As I said, like the VR, the controls and just everything else, and you can
just the different elements of it.
The different elements they definitely used. I would say the VR version is definitely probably the better version of it. But for just a wee quick gameplay version, and the Super Hot just normal version was good.
Aye.
I think that's what's so special about indie games too, because they test and push the medium in a way that other studios don't normally do. I tend to find the best experiences I've had were in indie games, hence the way my list looks. I mean, when I played Super Hot, I've played it in VR and not in VR. And the VR version gave me something that I will say motion sickness, very big deal with me. I have a problem playing a lot of VR games. This was no exception.
Me too.
So I couldn't play it its entirety in VR, so I did have to switch to the regular version. But in VR, what I did get to play made me feel like John Wick, and I think that's again something I'll never be able to do in real life. I mean,
you never know. You just never know until you're put into that situation.
True.
You can't make those statements.
I'll have to wait for my entire family to be assassinated by an underground organization that is run out of a hotel. You're right. I'm sorry, Mac.
And they're entirely red people.
Yeah. So, outside of that situation happening in real life, I most likely won't ever happen to be John Wick. And so this gave me that experience where you're saying, oh, there's a guy over there. Oh, I have to actually turn my head to look at that guy over there. Oh, well, I've got the gun. I'll just flick this button. No, I have to now pick up the gun and throw it at that guy and hit him in the head and watch him fly back. But it doesn't stop there. You're quick thinking, oh, okay, what would a reflex of this situation be? Oh, I'm picking up this gun. I'm throwing it at that guy. Well, if I plan over here, I can hit that guy with a shotgun. Or I could blast this guy who's coming from behind me to shoot him and then take the empty gun and throw it at the other. Like, all of that planning and forethought that you have to have in this kind of puzzle game, especially in VR, makes it so unique and gratifying. You feel the visceral nature of these puzzles because you are planning, you are gaining these reflexes. And as you go through the game, I made it maybe 5 or 6 puzzles in, before I had to ultimately quit the VR version. But getting to that point, those reflexes do start to kick in, and I think faster and faster and faster about it. And I think that is something that is so cool about Super Hot.
It's like what you said there. It's kind of, if anybody's ever played snooker, I mean, I'm obviously never played at like a professional level, but even when you try to play snooker, it's always about thinking for the next ball, and it's the exact same as in Super Hot. As you say, that you're always thinking about the next person. Even you're dealing with that person, but you're thinking of the next person. Where's that next person? What am I going to hit them with? What am I going to get them with? And can I just say, see the replays? So the game can be quite slow when you're doing it, when you're obviously trying to do puzzles, because as I said, if you stand still, time stand still. So it looks quite slow, but see at the end it shows you the replay, and I don't know how many times I've watched any of the replays. Those times that I just watched it because I was like, it looks so awesome once you've done it, and it just does it, and it's like literally 10 seconds, but you've been playing maybe that map for like, I don't know, 3 minutes or something like that, and then it's like 10-second instant replaying, and it's brilliant. You actually see it in motion.
Super hot.
That's a good pick. So I'll start with mine. I would like to say that there was something I used. I wanted to keep track of the games that I've played and the games that I'm planning to play, just because I'm ill and that helps my weird compulsive mind. So I used an app or a website called Groovy, which I think is it's attached to one of the kind of gaming websites libraries. So it has all of the kind of information and kind of pictures and games kind of stored that you can log when you've played games and what you thought of them and all that stuff. Because I think one of the biggest problems in trying to compile, I mean, this is just favourite games we've played, so it's not like we have to think too hard about what game was better than another and blah blah blah, because it's, you know, it's all personal taste and nobody can, you know, say otherwise. So but it's good to, you know, have something that logs or keeps track of all of your things, because it is so easy. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was looking at lists or trying to find like games that I actually played this year, like especially in when kind of December and January blend together, I'm like, what games did I actually play this year? Like, I can't remember or fully remember everything that I had played, but I think I've got a pretty good recap outside of the Switch. I don't think the one of the games I have put down was Switch related, but and kind of later on. But most of the games I didn't find time to go in and find out what I'd actually played. So I've made my list as best I could. Probably most checked it twice, and and it's pretty strong starting here. It's actually one of the most recent games that I've played. It came to the PS Plus actually. I think it's still out this month. Release date of 2021 in December, so almost a year ago. 2 Point Interactive's Heavenly Bodies, which is the kind of astronaut space game that you're kind of forced to grab your way around the map. You know, pretty much, you know, a difficult kind of control setup. But once you've kind of get used to it, it does start to kind of click. Because you're just kind of moving your arms about to move around, obviously in the kind of zero gravity kind of zone. You're just kind of as if you're kind of swimming in fresh air, and then you're kind of grabbing onto stuff and pulling things and turning cranks, and it just kind of speaks to my kind of that kind of problem solving kind of thing, and it's very basic and it's kind of approaching it is fairly easy. I think the only time that I really kind of failed anything that I was working on was when I increased some kind of controller difficulties or controller settings, which kind of makes it a lot more difficult, because if you play it on the most simple kind of setting, you can kind of move your arms, kind of gesture them as if you're swimming, and it will move you forward. But if you change to the most difficult setting, which you have to do to complete some challenges on the levels, or you need to complete every level on the hardest difficulty, and when you kind of swim, you kind of gesture your arms as if you're swimming. you just don't. You just float away. I don't know why, but that's what they kind of done. So it makes it a wee bit more difficult, especially I'm trying to do the platinum run for it. Haven't finished the game. I just felt like I wasn't quite done yet. So I started going back through and I try and kind of combine trophies or combine challenges. So one of them is obviously to do it on this harder difficulty, but the other one is to like grab something that's generally in a difficult location and bring it back to the starting area. And rather than play the level twice, I, for some reason, am making it more hard for me to play the hardest level by trying to do these two things in the one go. But it's still fun, so I'm going to probably keep doing that when I get back to playing the PlayStation in like a kind of party chat setting, because it is one of those games that you can just kind of switch off and kind of talk to other people. You don't really need to be concentrating too much. Apart from there's one level that you do. One of the challenges is to complete it in 10 minutes. So I was on with again Ben, please be excited. I was on a party chat with him, and I think Mrs. Matty might have been there, and I was just wasn't talking. I was just trying to get through this level, and I think at one point I'd done it in like 10. It's supposed to be under 10 minutes. I think I'd done it in like 10 minutes, and like I don't know, 1 or 2 seconds. And then the very next time I tried it was like 10 minutes and 30 seconds. So I was getting a wee bit more annoyed, but I managed to crack it, and I managed to kind of get that. So I can see the light, I can see the path towards the platinum trophy, and I don't think it's ever really come up. I'm not on the podcast before. I'm not really a trophy hunter, but if they're presented to me, I know Gary's making a face that you can't see that, right? But if they're presented to me, if they show themselves in the clouds of completing a game, generally I'll go for it. But it doesn't. It's not always something that I'm like I'm gonna go for this. But as soon as when I played it, I checked out the trophies, and I saw there was a time trial one. I thought, fuck that. But I did manage to get it, and because I managed to get that challenge, it is starting to make going for the platinum a wee bit more of something that I'm kind of looking forward to get. So I would suggest that people check it out, especially with it if you're listening to this just now. It is on the PS Plus games. I believe looking into it last night, I think it might have scored slightly lower on the console version. I think it's on PC as well. It scored an 84 on PC and 75 on Metacritic. So
Still pretty good, isn't it?
It's
Good.
a pretty good game. Pretty happy with that, and a good small indie game. If you look up to Point, they're really really small.
Yeah.
Would you say this is?
You go.
Sorry,
No, there you go. No, there you go.
Would you say this is in the vein of I Am Bread or Human Fall Flat, Octodad?
I'd say I'm not familiar with the bread one, but the Human Fall Flat, I would say it's most kind of in vein with that, and that you have the two hands that grab things independently of each other. But so you could say it's kind of Human Fall Flat in space, because it's generally the floating side of it really adds that extra challenge, because not only are you trying to turn something or open something, but you're also trying to fight the fact that you're floating away. And they give you like you've got it's quite fun to me, because you have like an outfit that you've got two kind of safety clips at the side of you, and you can clip yourself onto things, or you can clip things onto you. So if you've got like machinery or tools, like at one point you have like a wee spanner, and you can clip the spanner onto you, and then you can clip something else onto you, and there's ropes generally in the level, and depending on the difficulty, you actually might need to use them. And that's how I ended up kind of getting to beat the game, because I managed to clip myself, or not beat the game, but beat that time trial. Was to stop myself from floating away. I had to clip myself onto the top of the mast, so I could kind of pull the satellite back, because that's generally what the whole kind of gist is you're trying to bring this space station online by doing different tasks. And in fact, one of them you actually have like a little rocket that you kind of using to fly around space and take samples. But to get the rocket out of the space station, you have to connect or reconnect all of the thrusters, so that they're all kind of facing the right way. So it's little challenges. As soon as you start a level, you get a little kind of guide, and it tells you in picture form what you're supposed to be doing. Very basically what you're supposed to be doing, and then you just kind of make your way throughout the level. And honestly, the challenges are really interesting. They have you at one point, watering plants, and I don't mean you just get a little can. You have to go and get the minerals first, but to get the minerals, you have to kind of turn the dial, and you get this little rock, and then you put the rock in a machine, and it spins around, and it gives you out the minerals all broken down, and you put that in your bag, and then you go and plant them, and then you go and find the hose and turn the water on at the hose, and it's stupid, very small tasks, but
This is a
it's just
Sean-ass game.
correct. It's just something that just speaks to me, that methodical, do this, and then you can do this, and then you can do this, and then you're finished. It's a very tick the box kind of thing. You can't do anything out of order. You just have to kind of go through, and it's very fun. Like I said, I would recommend anybody just checking it out. I wasn't 100% sold when I first put it on, because I'm like, I just don't know how. I can't seem to. I feel like this guy's drunk, and now I'm drunk watching him, trying to move. But once you've got the kind of motion down, the next stage is to kind of ramp it up and do the collectibles and all that good stuff. So yeah, I'm heading for the platinum. I'm sure. Well, whether it be this year or not, I'm not. That's the one thing I'm unsure about. But I'll keep it on the PlayStation, and I implore everybody just to keep that on their radar and see if they can make sure they add it to the library and check it out later.
Can I just say, like, this was a game that I don't know if I introduced you to it, Sean, but it was a game I was like, this game's on the PlayStation Store, we should play it together. I was like, this is like Humans Fall Flat, which we played together. And I was like, oh, this looks really interesting. And then we tried it, and they only have local co-op.
Yeah, that's
Like,
the one thing.
what is
Yeah,
that about? It's like,
uh,
I'm all up for local co-op. Give me local co-op, but you need to have online co-op as well.
yeah,
That's just
yeah,
poor.
yeah. For the way that people get kind of play games now, in the way that it's so kind of globally spread. I mean, you look here that it's both of us live relatively close. Hoodie's the opposite kind of side of the world almost, and Ben's the complete opposite side of the world to us. It's the possibilities to play with other people are there. We'll have to maybe give them the benefit of the doubt that they're a very small
Yeah.
company. Looking at into it, I didn't do this for most of the games because I think I started with this one and I couldn't really find their sales numbers, but unconfirmed it's between 50 and 100,000, I think. So it's not a big title, probably a big title for them, but I don't think it's the biggest thing, and maybe that's the difficulty in terms of the cost to run these kind of servers and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think if you're going to put multiplayer in it at all, though, you need to have the online side to it. So maybe the answer was not to put it in. If that you don't really get that kind of heat then. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend. Hoodie, number 4, take it away, man.
Okay, so number 4 is one of those games that I didn't know about until you mentioned it, Mac. It came along on my radar at the beginning of the year. It was on sale, and I said, you know what? MrMac92, twitch.tv slash, said you should play this. I think you'd like it, and it's an easy platinum, which it was. Great platinum.
I'm so nervous.
It's The Last Campfire.
Oh,
This
okay,
was
yeah.
released in 2020. Its developer was Stephen Burgess, but it was published by Hello Games, famously known for No Man's Sky.
Yay.
on all consoles and is a puzzle game. Again, you're going to see a trend. I really like puzzle games. I like strategy games. And this one, I would say, falls lighter, vastly lighter than Superliminal, where it's a puzzle game that I think anybody can play and probably should, actually, because it's one of the sweetest games I've ever played. It is so genuine in its approach to tell a story not only about loss, but forgiveness, acceptance, grief, and how you heal from it or cope. Because it does deal a lot with mental health, which I did not know going in. But as I slowly learned about that and how they dealt with that, and I quickly realized, oh, some things in the environment you could talk to, and generally in games, I'll do that as much as I can until I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I want to see how the story ends now. I never did that with this. I went to every statue, I went to every animal or critter or whatever I could talk to, and I talked to them, and I tried to read all of their stories and listen to them and understand what they were saying, because it tells a really intimate story about depression or anxiety uh, in different ways. Because I do think those things are on a spectrum for a lot of people. My sadness is not the same as your sadness. And it tells you that in a very heartfelt way that, again, is very intimate. It is very personal to the main character. They are a people that are souls, I believe, from what I gathered, and you can be a lost soul. And in that, there are only a few left, but you can free those souls by lighting campfires at these shrines, and you try and light all of the shrines to free all of the souls that have been lost. They're essentially turned into stone. So what you're doing on this journey is you're solving little puzzles here and there. I don't feel like I ever got stumped too much. I know in Superliminal I had several parts of that. That's never a problem for me. I know other people can have problems where it's like, I can't solve this, I gotta give up. But I think what The Last Campfire does well is that it introduces, oh, I have to think about this, but not too much where I feel like I'm playing The Witness, which broke me. The Witness is a game that absolutely shattered all of my will to continue that game. And this is one of those sweet pocket games. So I would highly recommend just playing this for the story and the puzzles, but mainly the story, because I think a lot of games don't do what this does so well. I think a lot of games can talk about mental health. I think Celeste is a great example of that. I think Night in the Woods is another great example of that. I love Night in the Woods. I would have put it on my Game of the Year list, but I did not finish it, unfortunately, yet. It's a game that I can't wait to go back to, though. But for this, I by the end of it, I just felt so rewarded, and I felt like a catharsis has taken over for what that character was to me, and putting myself into that character, which is not something I do often. But when I was playing this, I just really felt a connection to save people or help people or do the right thing on some level. And by the end, there are choices, and those choices of dialogue do change the way I feel about certain things, where I'm like, well, just because I'm helping, is it really helping you, or is it helping me? And I thought that was an interesting conversation that it had in the game, because I think there is a level to positivity, or there is a level to helpfulness, where it can go from, I want to fix this person, where they don't need to be fixed, they just need to be heard. And I think all of those little details really mattered in this story, and in telling this kind of story also in this medium, because I think a lot of the time video games can really touch in a way and make you experience in a way that other mediums can't, similar to like what I was saying with Superliminal, where, oh, I walked away going, I wouldn't have done this in my life, I wouldn't have said this thing in my life, but because this game made me think this way, The Last Campfire made me go, oh, maybe I shouldn't approach people that way, maybe I should be hands off in this case or hands on in this case? What is the right amount of help? What is the right amount of listening? What is the right amount of anything? And not that you should overthink everything that it paralyzes you, but it is good to be aware and be self-aware. And I think this was really beautiful at that. And I really, really loved it. Also, it's a short game and it understands its time and what time it's giving to you. So I really appreciated it. And it was a great suggestion from Mac. I highly recommend. That's why it's my number 4.
Awesome. I enjoyed it. I think if it wasn't for its association with Hello Games, I might have missed it. But I think Sean Murray had retweeted it, and I don't know. I think it just looked apart. It looked like an indie. It looked kind of cute. It looked simple, and it was just one of those games at the time when I was kind of playing loads of different things. And it was fairly cheap. I think it's probably still is.
Yeah.
Fairly cheap. So, yep, stand by the recommendation, and would support that anybody should try it. Maybe not Gary. He's not got the patience for the kind of games, but
Nope, totally agree. Honestly, see what Hoodie said there. The witness broke me with puzzle games. I'm just like, I was just like, I don't even want to look at another puzzle game in my entire life.
I get it.
Boy, The Witness was a game that I saw and I said, "You're smarter than me, and you're telling me you're smarter than me," which makes me feel bad. So you're not.
Yeah. What about you, Gary? What about your number 4?
So my number 4 is Cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Made by CD Projekt Red, and it was first released on the 10th of December 2020. First released, aye.
How did that go?
It's terrible. So I have a rocky relationship with Cyberpunk, as Sean knows. So like most people, I think, got it for the PlayStation 4, and it was I didn't have a Pro PlayStation 4, so this game literally broke my PlayStation 4. And it was a new PlayStation 4 as well. It was a Spider-Man PlayStation 4, so it wasn't even that old. So I went in with this game with my arms folded already, and I was like, I'm just going to enjoy this whatsoever. But it was on sale when I got my PlayStation 5, when they did the new whatever patch, the big PlayStation 5 patch. So I bought it. I think it was half price. Don't know what price it was at the time. And I bought it and I played it, and I was like, oh my god, I really like this game. You can. It's such a beautiful city. The Night City. Face like desert sands to sprawling city. I think the city itself is a character. You know, like it's got such personality about it. Just walking through it, you know, there'd be times that I didn't even get my car. I would just be walking through the city, just looking at stuff, looking up. If you look up and you see the billboards that are on the billboards, they're like floating holograms all over the place. Very like Ghost in the Shell. You can see where they put their kind of, we're just taking this for Ghost in the Shell, and they're just wearing it on their sleeve. And I just loved it. The only problem I have with Cyberpunk City is it feels very empty. It feels very unlived in. That's the way to describe it. Even with all the patches and all that time later, it's still, I think, you walk down a street and you're lucky if you see 5 or 6 people. And a city is supposed to be at full capacity. I mean, how many times they talk about that in the actual main story and stuff, about how this is such a packed city and whatever else, and it's like one of the most emptiest cities I've ever seen in my entire life. I think the actual main quest gripped me more than I would have ever imagined. I thought to myself when I first started playing, I was like, it's a first-person shooter. I'm not really into like role-playing first-person shooters, but the main story with like the Keanu Reeves bit and stuff like that just gripped me so hard, and I didn't actually believe that it would. Keanu Reeves is really good in it. I thought at the start it was very like, oh, like, here we go, we've got Keanu Reeves in it, like he's not going to be that main part, but you actually, with V and Keanu Reeves' character, you build such a relationship with each other, and it's not even just a relationship, it's like a total brother bond kind of thing. Well, it's more than that because you're literally living through each other. The side quests are good as well, but I feel they're very fetch questy. And I was quite shocked at that because I think Witcher 3 has some of the best side quests in gaming whatsoever. And I felt like Cyberpunk's just weren't as good. You would maybe do one or two like handlers, but then after you've seen the first and second one, the rest are very samey. They're still fun, they're still quirky and stuff like that, but they're just no as good as like Witcher 3.
Do you not think, see, like, to the, I wouldn't say it was side quest because it's still part of the main story, but see, like, when you go and do all the kind of, like, the Pan Am stuff and whatever else, and like that, it's not quite the main vein of the story, but it's still, it's not I wouldn't say it was a side quest, but it's just another venture in the path. Like, it was quite a strong story, a combination of stories when you bring all of the different elements together, as much as they kind of packed the rest of it out with loads of, things that were fairly similar, that just basically, I would say they were more kind of like switch off and play type things, like where if you're like, go into this area and destroy these guys, like, obviously when I played it on the PS Pro when it first came out, and I did have a lot of glitches and stuff. We'll not get into that because everybody's talked that to death. But going in there with this getting the katana out, and these flashing colours, and you're getting in and you're just wrecking shop, like. And I don't know if I went back and played it now that the AI would maybe react the same way, because when I played it they were pretty much broken, but I didn't care. I was just laying the fucking smackdown on these guys and making sure that they never even see me. So I think
that's still a part of it, because I felt the same still when I was playing it. As you said, like the aesthetic for all the weapons themselves are enough characters. How cool like some of the swords are, like glowing swords, and guns. Got a gun that literally talks to you every time you kill somebody.
I hated that gun.
Oh, I love that gun. I loved it so much.
Scary.
I loved it. But yeah,
it was fucking a good gun, and all.
The combat, I think the combat, it took a while to get into, but see, once you start getting into it, like, you're totally turn effective with it.
How did you play? What was your style?
So I was stealth as much as I could, then just take out the rest. And see, like when you used to get you got the cybernetics, and you start getting like the mantis hands, or I like the gorilla hands. That's the ones I picked actually. So I'd just be running in, I'd just be punching people left, right, and centre, and they'd be like flying up in the sky and stuff like that. It was awesome. You just felt like you actually felt like your character, you were upgrading them, but you actually felt much stronger. That's one thing for this game that I felt was, like, RPGs, you genuinely don't feel at a level up, I don't feel, but with this game, you definitely feel your level up, you definitely feel your next upgrade. I think coming back to the aesthetic, even the aesthetic of the characters, although one thing today in this game that I didn't like is every time I was so loot driven, and they did it by points, and every time you killed somebody, you'd always get a new pair of glasses or a new pair of whatever, new pair of trousers, and they would be the stupidest looking trousers, but they were much better than the trousers you had on, so you had the option but to put them on. By the end of it, my guy just looked like he just ran through a bin and just wore all the clothes that he got and that, it just looked an absolute mess.
I was so glad that it was first person, you couldn't see your character, because
definitely.
I just, it looked like across. I'm not even going to go there. What I was going to say, but it was a very colourful and no good.
It was so bad that at the final battle, I was like, "Well, I'm going to put on the weakest stuff I have because it's the coolest looking thing I have, and I want these cutscenes to look real good." Fucking good. So I went into that battle and struggled, but I was like, at least I look cool.
Well played.
I really hate when games do that. Like, if you're going to do that, at least make the next thing look good and go together and stuff like that. Like I hate it. It was just honestly just a mishmash of clays. As you were saying, as you said, it wasn't a side quest, but they're kind of like the main story, but a wee bit to the left. Like the relationships you build in them, that was some of the best relationships I've probably played in a good while.
Yep.
Like building with, I think it was Misty is her name, and Panam.
Oh, yeah.
Panam was my girl, man. Oof, hottie
I'd
with the
go-
body, man.
I'd play DLC for that for the first one stuff.
The Panam files.
Say with the side quest stuff, I loved this game. This is my second favorite game that year, besides Miles Morales, which was my first. But the thing with playing this side quests in the conversations leading up to it, I know it fell very short from where they were trying to hit, but in the conversations leading up, they were like, "Oh, this world is affected by everything you do. It's insane.
Mhm.
Every little detail matters." And in my head, I took that as like, "Oh, if you sneeze in front of Judy, she'll hate you forever, and then one day, because she was sick on a Tuesday because you had sneezed on a Monday, she ends up stabbing you," or something like that. And that didn't happen. But what I did like was listening to, obviously there weren't very many, but the friends that I did have who could play this game. I was one of maybe no other people that played this game and had no glitches. Like the game crashed on me one time and I was fine when I played on PS4 Pro. But the thing is, like, I would listen to my friends talk about this game and their experiences, and I thought, oh well, that's where the choice is. I'm not experiencing it the way I want to in the game, but outside, I thought that was really fun. Like the way you two were talking about, well, I'd approach this situation this way. I had like the glowing sword and I'd bring in a shotgun or whatever. Like the way I played that whole game was, I'm going to find a shotgun that's really good and I'm never going to stop pulling the trigger. And that's going to be my entire experience through that game. And like, until I had to go for the platinum, and then they were like, haha, you shouldn't have played it like that. And I was like, oh, I have to do this all over again. Which I
that
did.
platinum was tough.
Yeah.
That was good. I would, if somebody enjoys a game, I would recommend it because it was good. But don't get me wrong, there was a few that, I had to do a wee bit of, you kind of do a wee bit of save manipulation at the end. It's not awfully complicated, but if you save it at a certain point, it's no spoilery, but there's a part of the final mission, if you make sure you have a save there, then you're generally okay.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of halfway through the mission, actually, you can save it again. Again, no spoilers, but halfway through the mission, you can save it again, and then obviously, unless people don't know, but there's alternate endings to that game, so depending on what you choose. But probably like Hoodie, I ran into a few issues where I'd maybe missed some things, and it meant that I had to go back. So I had luckily got a few saves that were, maybe 50 hours before, and I had to go all the way back and do that bit, and then play all the way forward and that save to the final mission, just so I could unlock the last of the alternate
This is the guy that said 2 seconds ago he's not got a problem with trophies.
No, I said I wasn't a trophy hunter. Like I don't actively like. I mean, some people are like
later.
some people like ill with that kind of thing, like where they'll like no play a game because of them, or people they'll play games because to get platinum trophies. Like I don't have any
like that. We don't have a
no, absolutely no. I don't like I don't. I'm not fussed about that kind of thing. I don't go around telling people how many platinum trophies I have and stuff.
We don't have a friend like that.
Oh, aye. Tell me about it. So there's loads of different things in that game that I would agree with you with, like the fact that the earth is empty. The city is really empty, like for how nice it looks. It totally takes the shine off it a wee bit. But the way that they've designed like the cars, like the cars are so flashy and stuff. But it's like you get in a car and it's as if like nobody else is aware that you're there or knows that they have anywhere to be or go or whatever. It's there's no real logic, but I think it's not unfair because they built it up themselves. We're so used to the way that a Grand Theft Auto plays, that I
Mhm.
think when we approached these games, we were looking for a cyberpunk edition of Grand Theft Auto, and that's
Yeah.
just not what happened. You know, some of these logic or jumps in logic were solved a way back when in like say Vice City and stuff, or existed in Vice City, and they improved on it in other games. Like the fact that
Yeah.
if you sit in your car and you know in Grand Theft Auto now, they'll just go around you. Whereas in in Cyberpunk, you park your car and then the whole world would stop.
Yep.
You know, it's really simple things like that, but
And then you
it's
turn the camera forward and turn it back, and it's disappeared.
exactly so. Um, I think for the things like that, because what we expect from studios these days, and what we probably expected to get into that game because of the marketing, because you can't wholly say that they're not responsible for what
Yeah,
we
definitely.
expected, because some of the trailers that they'd shown, you were going through like all these people and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
if you remember what actually happened in that, you actually, it was an elevator up to a separate area, and then that's where all the people were. So you were going around Night City and dealing with other people, and they were up partying on the ledge somewhere. So you went up, but you didn't actually pass through them. You passed through a corridor within them. So they used a few tricks that weren't really hidden all that well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not one for being overly negative, so I will switch to the positives. That I think the stealth, that allows for a lot of stealth gameplay, and that's my jam.
Definitely.
I really enjoy that kind of thing. Using the implants to control the electronics, and activate certain things, and do kind of different stuff, and
Yep.
stealth sneaking through the level, and
You
I
know,
use the sniper quite a lot as well.
there's
So
even there was see towards the end when you're like totally cybernetic out your nut. Like there's literally levels that I was doing in a stealth in the entire level and like
yep,
collected the thing that I got, never killed a
aye,
person, and then just went all the way back out.
yep,
You know,
aye,
which is
aye,
amazing when a games just give you that option.
yeah,
Mm.
aye. So I think for the majority, I mean, I'm with you. I would say that it's got its flaws, but it's still a pretty good game and a pretty nice looking game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I was on the side of Gary where I loved the talking gun thing. There is a
Hmm.
side quest which I will not spoil. That's one of my favorite. I think Gary also makes a great point that playing what little I have of The Witcher 3, their side quests are incredible. I say this enough times, but my favorite side quest of all time is in The Witcher 3, where it's a woman who wants her pan back, and you break into a house to get the pan, and that's the entire mission. There's nothing else. You just break into a house to get her a frying pan, and that's all that there is. And I just go, that's an incredible mission. What a simple thing that has no real consequence on
Yeah.
anything. It's just a
Yeah.
real easy task that Geralt can do. He can just go into a house and get that for her. And I think their side quests in this are very fetch quests, as Gary said, but
Hmm.
the characters within them really were so well written. I thought there is, again, I'm not going to spoil it, but my favorite quest in that, it involves a vending machine, and
Yeah.
if you know
Yeah.
what that is, you know what that is, and it's one that I got to the end of and I cried, and I was like, how am I so affected by this story? What happened here? Or even there's one that is fairly annoying to get through, but I did like the overarching story of it, of the taxi company.
Yeah.
I really
That's
liked that.
exactly. I knew
That's
exactly what
Nah.
it was to there.
yeah. I think there are so many memorable quests. Like the fact that I'm able to list off side quests speaks
Yeah.
volumes to what they did for the writing of them. Even if they were, like you said, I agree, fetch quests a lot
Yeah,
of the time.
yeah.
It
Especially that
was
taxi one, because it's
oh
literally
boy.
just go and get a taxi for somewhere and then drive it all the way back. But as you
Oh
say,
yeah.
that does definitely have a big payoff at the end of it.
Yeah, the writing in it makes all of that worth it. Where I do feel like a Borderlands, I constantly felt like, oh, go get this thing, bring back this package. I never really cared that much by the end of them. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, your characters aren't strong enough to make me have to go all the way to get some, scrag and then bring that back to a Fraggle Rock and do it. Like, I don't care about this. Where at least when I was getting the taxis, each one had their own personality,
yeah,
and it all felt like some of the taxis were much more difficult to drive. Hint, hint. Like those things really made the fetch quest system feel unique enough where I was like, oh, okay, well, I at least want to see what's going to happen if I go get this taxi. Like, that one sounds crazy. And guess what? It is. So, like, you know, I really appreciated the writing in that game because I thought they did a great job at that.
Yeah. CD Projekt Red have got a good reputation for their writing and their characters and stuff like that, and you can see it. No, I Witcher 3 definitely is the better version. Like I know like you can't really compare, but you obviously will. If you've ever played loads of Witcher 3, then you're just like, this game is. I've never experienced such good side quests and such good side characters. But Cyberpunk, you can see it's still there. I think the only other thing about Cyberpunk is, even after I played this and I thought to myself, I really, really enjoyed that, played it from start to finish, but, still at the end, I was left with this pure sour taste in my mouth, like, why did it not come out like that? But why did you not just wait? Why did you do that to yourself? You absolutely screwed the picture on it.
I think, obviously, again, another topic that's probably been covered today, so I don't need to go too far into it, but it's just one of the things, money talks in it, so, that's the be-all and end-all of it. I'd be remiss to move on to my pick with it mentioning the tank, which I thoroughly enjoyed getting a shot of. As soon as I seen that, I'm like, oh my god, they better let me use that.
A shot of the tank or a shot of Pan Am?
No, obviously hand in hand, to be fair. But getting the opportunity. Obviously, you're driving around it first, and then you're like, "Oh, this is pretty cool." And then it's like, "Right, okay, let's go." And you're like, "Oh my god, like I'm leading the charge in this this tank." And and you go into this area, and the area feels so small. But once you've kind of got past that part. And I think eventually you're kind of out of the tank in combat, and then it just feels like so huge because you're not in this
arena kind
of thing. You're not in that tank anymore. So it's the way that they kind of change perspectives in and out of combat was a real game changer. So a good pick again. Gary, and one that I don't know when I'll kind of pull the trigger. I feel like eventually I'll check the game out again somewhere down the line, but it just for some reason that again I think you and me suffer for the same thing. It's that kind of platinum syndrome type feeling where you've got the platinum trophy, so why go back and play it again? So
I think there's DLC coming in next year, so maybe that's the time to re-adventure the back in.
It could be
trophy list for PS5.
That's it. Aye, could be the reason to jump back in. I'll have to take a wee butcher's hook, and we'll see. So number 4 for me then. I'm actually fairly similar, and you'll probably have you'll come to see this as we go through my list. But Gary had mentioned when he started that he was not. It was more of a kind of catch up year for him, and I'm fairly similar in mind that I have a lot of games. In fact, the majority, only one of them actually. Releasing this year, the majority of the games releasing across a multitude of years going back, and this next one is probably the oldest of them. But like Gary, I was maybe catching up on a lot of the year and maybe not playing as much games as I have done in previous years. But I have checked out one of Hoodie's faves, which is Costume Quest. So released in 2010, developed and published also by Double Fine Productions. There's a whole host of publishers attached to the game, including THQ and things. But Double Fine's obviously the name that we're probably all versed in terms of for this game. A lower meta score than I thought it was going to be, 77. For this game, obviously, the critics didn't know what they were talking about this year, because this game is just beyond reproach in its style. A turn-based strategy game, very very strong in terms of the the combat and the kind of simple nature. To take a topic like Halloween, and just kind of enthrall you in that. The loop behind visiting doors and doing your trick or treating, and sometimes you were getting candy, which is currency, and then switching to getting that kind of surprised enemy behind the door, and you're in a kind of turn based combat. It was pretty cool. For me, I didn't really know what to expect getting into the game. Loads of people had mentioned Costume Quest over the years, and I think it's actually one of those games that people tend to play, maybe every year, maybe every other year, that kind of thing. But they definitely play with some kind of frequency, and I think I might have joined the list of people for that kind of thing. I think it's something that I would definitely check out again, because I did really enjoy the kind of combination of the costumes and move sets and things like that. Once I'd figured out that you actually have to equip I can't remember if it's cards in that game or not, because there's cards in the second game in it. But once you've equipped them, that's when the effects take place. So it took me a good few fights and getting beat to try and kind of look into things and manage to kind of get my way through the rest of the game. It's like I said, it's a fairly simple story, in terms of you're trying to get your sister back, and that's what it was for myself. You're trying to kind of get them back, whilst kind of trick or treating throughout to take care of all of the kind of monsters, if you like. But the idea was that if you got all the candy in a certain area, they would they kind of open the gates and let you into the next area, and so on and so forth, until you kind of got to the boss fight. So like I said, it was a pretty good loop, pretty kind of samey as it got in between the different areas. But I felt like they changed enough up throughout, in terms of giving you a new costume for each area, which kind of brought around, new attacks. And every time I felt like, this is my setup, this is my loadout, I would get something else that would just completely turn the game on its head, and I would all of a sudden be changing the way I was approaching battles, and some fights you were going defensive, and some fights you were kind of taking the fight to the to them as well. So costume quest for me, it's probably a strange one for most, because it is, again, I don't want to use the word basic, but it is a much kind of simpler game compared to some of the other games that I've played. But I thought it definitely deserved a place on the list, that's for sure.
Double Fine does not miss for me, where they make games that are so special and unique and niche that you're like, they're so specific. They're such a specific game, and this falls into the category of specific that I love even more, where we don't get a lot of seasonal games where the season is a character in a game. And I think off the top of my head, it's like Costume Quest and Miles Morales are the two games that come to mind where I go, oh, the season is a character. It's not just a story element. It is like a thing that is actively happening and matters to what is happening in this world. And I think Costume Quest is that perfect Halloween time game. It is that perfect strategy game. I love that it's turn-based. I love turn-based games. I think everything you've said about it, I echo, and it is one that builds up over time, and there's enough variety. And then obviously when you get into Costume Quest 2, which is another brilliant game and sequel, that these two games are so special and so, I think, important in gaming history, for me at least, where I look back and I go, this was my first turn-based game that I was like, yes, I love this genre. This is a great genre. Where I played Pokemon and whatnot, and those are all fun enough. But this was the one where I was like, oh, okay. And there's elements that make you have to think. It's not just, oh, I've got a Pikachu that's really powerful. They're all dead. That's it. The end. This is like, oh, well, if I use this could affect my other character that would, not give them enough energy to do their thing. Or if I use this turn now, this could affect the outcome of the end. Should I save this? Should I hold this move? Should I do this here? All of those things. Yes, I think this is, in quotes, not as any disrespect, but like baby's first turn-based strategy game. But it
Yeah.
is so great for that. It is a great entry game, and I love it dearly. So I'm
Yeah.
very happy it's on your list.
There's a few things on it. Once you get right into the game and you kind of start upgrading, you're spending the candy that you're getting from battles and from visiting houses and stuff. You start unlocking the stamps, I believe it is. For which is your kind of boosts, and obviously, as I said, I got to an area and I couldn't get past the kind of fight because I wasn't hitting kind of hard enough, and it wasn't then until that I realised that I have to go in and equip each of the stamps, and once I'd kind of done a few of them, I'm like, right, okay, I've kind of got this down, and things is I'm starting to kind of get the hang of this. It's one of them's extra attack and all that kind of stuff. But then they started to like switch things up where it's like, oh, acid. And I'm like, why would I need that? I don't need that. Like, why would I even use that? And then one day, at one point, I thought, do you know what? I'm going to equip this and see like what it does because it was one of the kind of later points of the game. And they attack you, and they literally start taking acid damage, and suddenly you can start kind of putting, you generally only have 3 enemies at one time. So you can start to kind of go, right, okay, well, if I'm going to attack this person because they're taking acid damage over there, he's going to be done next turn. I don't need to even worry about them. I'm going to focus on this one instead. And then, you can equip things that give people a boost in health, or you can equip things that if somebody attacks you and you manage to, block them effectively, you then attack them back. And kind of things like that, or the special move, hits a wee bit harder and whatever else. So I felt like applying them in a certain way, it's totally switched up the game. I think I could play that game again, and if I was to try and restrict myself and not use those same stamps, like I would still find ways to win the game because there's just a multitude of different options. I didn't use the healing all that much, but like you said, you could make sure that this person's going to be okay. So I'm just going to make sure that I'll use my special right now because this guy's special is an area attack one where if you attack the first guy, he's going to take the main block of damage, but the other two are going to be damaged by the kind of after effect of it or the spread of it, and then that person's got acid damage, so he's going to take that. So if I just use the other person to focus on the third person, then everybody's kind of going to roughly die at the same time. So it's probably pretty, as you said, baby's first turn based. So what I'm probably saying and what I'm talking about, it's probably nothing new, and in terms of turn based games for some people and strategy games for some people, but and probably the vast majority of people that listen to this has probably played either the first one or the second one or whatever. But I just felt like it was just such an addictive game. I don't know. I wanted to finish it. I wanted to complete it as soon as I'd started it. So for me, especially playing it around about the Halloween time, it might find its way back into the rotation, whether it be next year or the following, because it was pretty short and sweet. But straight to the point. I enjoyed it. Gary, I think you played the second one, didn't you?
Yeah, I played the second one. I enjoyed that. That was good. I love the art style. It's dead cute game. But I know I really like it. It's a really good game. I've not played the first one, but it was good.
So how do you then turning towards the back end of the top 5? Kick us off then with the number 3s.
I think your lead out was a great lead in for my next game because it is also a turn-based strategy game. Now this one I will say was a very very close toss-up. I had never played Slay the Spire. I played it for the first time this year. Everybody has said since I've played it, oh, this is the greatest game of all time. Oh, it's so great. And I had never heard any of that rhetoric. I had never heard anyone talking about this game, which, to my surprise, I felt like I was the first person to have ever played Slay the Spire. Did it make my list? Almost. Until just like last month, this game came out. 2022. The developer is Newverse, is a mobile game called Marvel Snap. And if you don't know what this is, you're living under a rock. This is the greatest game. It's so addictive. I've never played a game so... There are moments in my life where I've stopped and thought, how could you ever be addicted to a game? How does that happen? You know, I can turn off a game whenever I want. And then I got Marvel Snap, and I realized, no, I can't. I can't turn it off whenever I want. I need to keep playing it. And then I go, oh, this is unhealthy. But I won't give up on this unhealthy relationship I have with Marvel Snap because it's wonderful and I love it. And it's smart and it's so smooth. It is from my surface level knowledge made by people behind the game Hearthstone, which is another great game I've heard that people love. So it makes sense that when they went into this, they decided to make something polished and quick, accessible. It's got every Marvel character under the sun, I assume, at this point. Because I just unlocked a character called Hell Cow, and I'll tell you what, didn't know that was a Marvel character. So, you know, and I like to think that I like Marvel and DC enough to know characters. But what this game is...
That's in the next phase, Hoodie.
It's the next Disney Plus show. Yeah, it's going to get a trilogy. You won't believe what Hell Cow gets up to. This game, in simple terms, is a turn-based strategy where you collect cards, and you get those cards by building up your collection levels. You can do that by winning games. You can do that by beating daily missions or weekly missions. There is a battle pass that you can pay $10 for USD. I will say that I haven't, and I've still gotten so many cards. So many. I'm level 600 in my collection right now. So I don't feel that this is a game that tries to find a way to pocket from you at all. I think this is genuinely a game that you can pick up, you can play free of charge, no entry fee, no late fees, nothing about that. You're just having fun playing this. Because I talked to a friend of ours, Philip J. Woodward, and he and I go back and forth on strategies all the time, and we're always talking. He's getting this card here, and I'm getting this card here, and the excitement of that is in the meta of, oh, I don't know which cards are in this game. So when something is played by another character, that card pops up on your screen and says, oh, you've discovered, yada yada. Like, for instance, Phil had played, he plays just as much as I do, and he had discovered Deadpool, but I didn't even know Deadpool was in the game, and I had never met Deadpool. So I take spoilers as what you will, but I personally don't like knowing what the card does, because each card has their own unique ability, and those abilities work off each other. They can work together in unison. They can work against you sometimes, which is interesting, and that makes it its own tactic that I just did not imagine was possible in a game where, I not only have to take what I said about Costume Quest, where I have to think, I have to plan, just like in Super Hot. I have to know what I'm going to do with these cards. I have to understand what's going to happen if I use Sandman here and then have to go one per turn once I've played him. Do I know that I have a Devil Dinosaur in my pocket? Do I know that I can pull that out? Do I know that I have enough cards to build him up by the end? Do I know that I have a Sunspot? Do I know that I have a Squirrel Girl that'll work in my favor if I use X, Y, and Z? Like, all of these things are so fascinating to think about and plan and strategize. But then to throw it into the loop, They also have tiles, and there are 3 tiles where you can play up to 4 cards. And those 3 tiles have their own abilities, and those abilities can change the game at any point in time. That's the thing that makes this so interesting, because the tiles are always randomized, and there are so many different tiles, and sometimes they push tiles for that day where it's like, no, you're probably guaranteed to get this tile this round. Some of them help you, some of them significantly hurt you. I've lost plenty of games where I've just been destroyed by a tile and not the player. Like, the player had a bad hand, but that tile changed their hand entirely.
Yeah.
And I think it is so impressive down to the minutia of the game, where you are just thinking so hard at what points will give you the best strategy, because sometimes it isn't even about the cost of the card. It's not it's not even the power of the card that matters, but it's the cost that matters. So if I'm spending a card that costs 6 to use, energy wise, but it only gives me 3 power, that might not always help me, but it could in the end. Because if I have the Devil Dinosaur, who is a 3 power card but costs 5 to use, and I place him, if I have, 6 cards in my deck, guess what? He gets 2 plus power for every single card that's in my deck. So he's now gone from a 3 card to, I'm not going to do the math, but like a 10 plus card. So he is now more powerful than anything I could have had. All of those things play in tangent. They're so smart and so accessible, where at first you are spoon fed what you're supposed to do. They are walking you through an extensive tutorial that you understand that these cards do this and this card does this. And once you have those cards, you think, oh, okay, well, I get it. But you don't. You don't get it, because over time you're learning things that you didn't think were possible. And this is the special thing about this game. This is why it's on my third. Because this is why it's my third favorite game this year. Because you learn from other people. And at the end of the day, I always respect every game I've played, because I took something out of that game that wasn't taught to me through the game. It was taught to me through the player that I've faced.
Yeah.
That's super unique to me, at least, where I don't walk away angry that I lost. I walk away going, whoa, that person used a Wong here, and Wong duplicated a Tigress, and then Tigress was able to, White Tiger, and that White Tiger was able to duplicate multiple times, and then they used an Onslaught here to do that. Like, all of those things I now take away, and I go, shoot, I didn't know I could use that card that way. I didn't know that. Phil was talking to me, and Phil said, did you know you could use Storm here? And although the card says you can't play cards here, you can move cards here after it's done. So if I placed a Storm and then I had an Iron Fist, I could use an Iron Fist and a Vulture to then make Iron Fist punch Vulture over to the Storm card. So now I've doubled up that power, and no one else can play there. Unless they have a move card, of course, but you hope that they don't. Oh, I have a one cost deck, right? Also, you can make multiple decks, which is interesting. So you can plan according to decks, so you never feel limited. And to my knowledge, there's no limit on decks. I'm up to deck 5 right now, where I'm like, I have 5 decks that all do different things for different reasons and what have you. But like, I have a 1 cost deck where all of my cards are 1 cost, so I'm guaranteed to have enough energy for all of them. But there's a Killmonger card, and Killmonger can kill every 1 cost card that you have played. So that could ruin your entire day. Just 1 card can ruin everything for you, and you have to hope that the risk is worth the reward. A lot of the times it isn't. But again, it is about learning. It is about growing within that game and that ecosystem to understand, I could have done this better. It is what I imagine people who like Dark Souls experience, where it's not the game's fault that I lost this. It's my fault. If I had fought this Bloodborne boss better, I would have beaten this Bloodborne boss, right? It is on me and not the game. It is on me and not the other player. That other player just taught me something. And I think that is wildly imaginative, and, much like what Mac was saying, maybe tons of people have known this forever, but I haven't. This is my first, like, real dense strategy turn-based game, and I am loving it. It is the experience that I never knew I needed, and I love every second of it. I think the other thing is you can buy gold if you want, which is you can use real currency, but they give you so much gold. I have like 1,500 gold right now, and with that I can buy variants, so I can get my card, and I can get a variant artwork for that card. And there's so many different artists involved with Marvel Snap that you're seeing tons of work from X, Y, and Z, your favorite comic artist, or just an artist in general who doesn't necessarily work in the comics but does make great variant covers. So that's always
cool.
special, from Pixel to Chibi to Masterworks. I mean, it is really fun to see what other people have for their style of Star-Lord or their style of Ant-Man, what have you. The other thing is that you can level up your cards, which is super exciting. And it is also a risk-reward thing. If I level up this is also just, again, the nuance of these cards and your decks and your collection play into your collection levels, which the collection levels are the things that unlock boosters, and boosters are the things that you need to upgrade your cards, right? So you go up the collection tree and you can get boosters, credits, or cards themselves. And so every time you upgrade a card, you get collection points, and the collection points play into that, so you can then get another card, yada yada. It's a whole sort of cycle. But the fun part of that is you don't know what card you're going to get, obviously. Currently, Phil and I both want Venom so badly, and neither of us can get Venom. But we really want Venom, and he sounds like an amazing card. But I did get, I was mentioning to Gary, Hellcow, right? Hellcow is not a character that I knew about. It is not a character that I thought I would ever need, but it is a character that helps me in a deck that I never thought I would I would be saying. Where I'm like, oh, just because it's not the card I wanted, this card could actually be better. And I didn't realize that. And I won't realize that with a lot of my cards until I've seen them in play by other people a lot of the time. Like, I've had cards.
It's just what you say. Just try to find the tactics, isn't it? The tactics that works with that card.
Yeah, exactly. It is understanding, oh, I've had this card forever, but I've never used it because I didn't know it could do that. That is cool. There are iron ranks, which every season there are 100 ranks, and you can rank up in those, and they'll give you things. So the Marvel Snap of it is the betting process. So you can bet whether or not to go up 1 point or 2 points. The max is 8 bets. So every time you do that, that'll either by the end give you a win, and you get 8 points to go up the iron rank, which ranks you with higher and higher people who are better and better at the game, or you lose 8 points and you go back down. So like currently I think Phil is at a 48 and I'm at a 54 in iron rank. So Phil and I can't ever match with each other. Later on down the road, they've had a roadmap that will let you play with your friends, which I'm excited for. But the idea is for the iron ranks, it's like, well, I can't play against a level 40X, right? I can only play against a 50X. So I think that also helps to explain, oh, I am good enough to be here, right? Generally, I'll play a Call of Duty and I'll be dropped in a round with people who are shooting me before I've even touched the floor. Like, I don't feel like I'm equal to them. I feel like I'm lesser than. And that's why I don't play Call of Duty, not because the game's bad, but because I feel bad. And this game makes it known to not only the people that I'm playing with, but me, that I deserve to be here. Like, I have earned this rank. I am good enough to be here. It is not by chance. It is by strategy and planning and being better than somebody at something in any given round. So, I could talk about this game forever, and I have talked about it just here, but I've also talked about it with Phil and Ben, and their ears have fallen off because I've talked about it so much. But I adore this game. It is the only mobile game I have ever invested in, and it is one that I will continue to invest in until it dies off. I don't know, but I love it. It's free. Play it. Hopefully someday we can all play together and fight each other, and I'll be destroyed by all of you. So I'm excited for that. I'll learn something.
Card games. The only other card game I've ever played is Gwent and Witcher 3.
That's a great one. That's a great one.
It's the only one I've ever played. and see everything you said there. It just totally mimics everything that happens in that. Everything you were saying, I was about to say, oh, and this kind of thing happens, and you literally say that in that. You know, you, I was using a deck for the entire game, and then I was realizing the computer kept doing this thing with like the monster pack, and I was like, wait, they keep like doubling up and stuff, and then I totally switched to monster pack, and it was like a total risk reward kind of thing, you know. And it just as you said, you get into like the minutia of these card games, and it's not just about numbers, and it's not just about if I got the best numbers on my battlefield. It is all about if I got the right cards, know the best cards, and I can totally understand where you're coming from. And it's a very strange pick for a top 5 games, but I'm glad you got it in there. I'm glad you got it in there because for the sounds of it, you absolutely love it, and I know how addictive the card. I mean, I was playing a card game in a game, and I was totally addicted to try to get every single Gwent card I could.
Well,
do you think you'll check this out?
No.
Fair enough. It's also Marvel. Don't do that to yourself. But this game has opened my eyes so much that when the update drops in December for The Witcher 3, the next gen update, I'm excited to jump back into that and go play Gwent. Like I'm just like, oh okay, yeah. I might actually finish The Witcher this time, but more so I'm gonna go play Gwent. I'm gonna go try that out again.
Yep. It's definitely worth going. I love Gwent. Every time we were in a tavern, it was like, you want to round down Gwent? I'd be like, yes.
Awesome. Well, I think that I don't really have too much to add because it's I've seen people playing it. Johnny Vids, he plays it every Friday, Friday morning for us. Johnny will be playing that typically, and I was watching him this morning. Which would have been last night for Johnny, and I really enjoyed it. I just enjoy the music gets stuck in my head for like half a day when he's kind of playing it, and to be honest with you, I'm usually getting ready or having breakfast or whatever else. I'm not paying too much attention, but I get the loop, and but as somebody like I enjoyed Gwent, but it's as soon as it ramps up in difficulty, I'm like, all right, I've had enough. So that same kind of thing applying. Like there's a lot of parables to think about, and it just doesn't typically kind of sit with me too well because it just usually because it's like, oh, I'm kind of winning here, and then they'll play something, and it's like, oh, I'm fucked. And I totally get that that's a thing of the game, but I'm just like,
Yeah. See, Sean wants the player to know when his mum's coming to pick him up.
Yep, correct. Do you know what, in my mind, I was like, I just prefer playing games like Yu-Gi-Oh! For the be all and end all is I just like to win.
So talking about card games and talking about Gwent, my number 3 is The Witcher 3, but I'm going to thing it a wee bit, and it's going to be the DLC for Blood and Wine.
Oh.
So this is the first time I ever played the DLC. I bought the DLC whenever it came out, probably 2015, 2016. I never played Witcher again since this year. So I went in and I was like, I'm only going to play a DLC. So I started it and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this with a character that wasn't my character. So like an insane person, I went and played like 100 hours of The Witcher 3 just to get to the DLC.
I felt exactly the same way. Just before you get too far into it, I couldn't even play it. Like I tried, but I had already played the main game recently, so I was like, and obviously I bought the Game of the Year edition, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna go jump straight out of Blood and Wine, and it's like, here's all the points, like just go ahead, and I'm like, no. I don't want to just make a guy, and I did. I think I can't remember if I looked it up or not, or tried it. But basically, I just tried, and it was that long ago that I couldn't remember what my build was on the other game. I made a build, and then I went to go and fight these 4 or 5 guys, and I died, and then I turned it off. So I've never went back to it. And as Hoodie says, I'm tempted to go back and play the next gen version. But I would do exactly what you done and start
Yeah.
again.
So that's the problem with Blood and Wine. I felt as well. It was when I tried to play it. It was maybe a year after I had played Witcher 3. So I went back, and I always feel like Witcher 3 is a game that you need to learn. It's a game that's all about like practice, and it's all a game about learning the strategies of the monsters, learning what magic uses what and what defense, and So see when you were getting flung in, and as you said, they were just like, "Boom, here's 40 points, spend it on whatever." I was like, I don't even know what any of this stuff is anymore. The only one I knew was Igni. It was fire. That's. I was like, I don't remember I'm hanging about this, so I had to go back and I had to go through all the Witcher 3 again, which I thoroughly enjoyed actually playing it again. So when I played Blood and Wine, I have to say this is some of the best DLC I have ever played. This is a DLC that on how long to complete. It says 15 hours for story, but I played this for easy 20-25 hours. Um, this Witcher, this although Witcher is about knights and stuff like that, but this feels like your proper like old like English story. Like it's proper like um, knights and kings and stuff like that. It's got big grand castles, and you actually take part in like medieval games and stuff. You're actually like doing horse riding. You're doing like, archery. You're fighting in tournaments against other knights. It's a really different feel for like the main part of Witcher 3. Also, the place is stunning. It's like a kind of, if you can imagine, like medieval France. That's what the place looks like, and the colours a totally different palette. Totally different palette for the main Witcher 3 game. It's nice and bright. It's all bright and colourful. There's lots of yellows and reds, and the flowers are just totally vibrant. It's just a total switch for that war torn Witcher 3. I think with this, it's a fleshed out DLC as well. It's not just like here's a couple of things, here's a couple of new monsters. The story is great. It's all about like Blood and Wine, as you can imagine. It's all like about vampires. It's about vampires, and it's about like vampires like try to integrate with like the royal family and stuff like that. It's a really like entangled web, and it's quite diplomatic and stuff like that. And again, with Witcher, as a Witcher always goes, you don't really know where you are. You don't know what's the right thing to do. You're always kind of sitting in the grey and not really understanding what's the best outcome for the scenarios. And this DLC does that perfectly as well. A good thing about this DLC is you get a house, which is totally strange for Witcher 3. Witcher 3, you're just that wanderer, vagabond that's just walking about, just collecting monster heads for money. But in this, it's like, oh no, you actually will get your own house, and you can do it up. And it's no Skyrim esque. It's no like pure customizable, but there is like, oh, we need this much money to do this, and we need this. It's a winery you actually buy, so it's like got a vineyard and all that kind of stuff. It's just a wee bit extra in the game, but I really enjoyed it. It was somewhere to store your weapons, and you could actually put your swords on the wall and your armor. There was armor suits like the mannequins that you could put your armor on and stuff like that. That was really cool. I'm into stuff like that. Also, some of the new creatures. I mean, I think literally, I'm not spoiling it, but literally, I think the first 30 seconds, you literally ride in and you hear this knight shouting, and you run up. You and a silver knight runs up, and there's this giant, and it's like no giant you've ever seen in Witcher. He's just like this total new character, and they fighting. They try to. It's trying to learn the tactics again. Like it's you might have fought giants in the other game, but the tactics for this is completely different. And as you said as well, the DLCs are harder. They're harder than the main game. They did that, and I think that was a very good choice because you actually had to think. You had to, as I said, change your tactics. It wasn't just I'm going to dance, parry, slash, slash, slash. It wasn't like that anymore. You had to maybe had to use your ranged weapons. You maybe had to use more of your magic and stuff like that just against even normal enemies, which I really, really liked, especially when you've been playing that long. It just changed up the game dynamic a wee bit. I think the new creatures in it as well. They didn't just go like, here's the same creatures in a different place and they're different colours and stuff like that. No, they literally came up with new creatures. There's maybe a couple the same, but most of them are like new creatures. And as I said, it's right back to that other point. Like you have to you're trying to find your new tactics, and you're trying to find what's this creature, what does it know like? Is it know like fire? Does it know like this? Whatever, you know. And that just it's building that new extra element to an already existing part of The Witcher that you already had. And the DLC, honestly, if you've played Witcher 3 and you're like me, you played it and you've 150 years in, you're like, I'll get to that DLC. You have to try and get to it because it is honestly one of the best DLCs I've ever played, ever.
That makes me very excited to jump back into the next gen, just to go play the DLC now. Where I'm like, I personally like the color palette that you're speaking of, like the change of that does interest me. I do have a harder time when games are like a very monotone color, which The Witcher is. The the thing is like it's generally gray. Sometimes gold when you go to I want to say Novigrad is the name of it. But I like the idea of a pop. I want to see a fantasy world look like. I mean, that's always my problem with Game of Thrones, where I'm like, Game of Thrones is just that much harder to watch because it looks bad. Like, not bad in like the costume design's great, CGI's great, yeah. But like the color grading, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, it's
where
like
I
dull.
watched Lord of the Rings this year, and I cried in that show where I was like, this is so beautiful. Like, everything in the show is beautiful. Rings of Power is gorgeous, and so you talking about that color palette change makes me go, I want to get to that. I want to see what that looks like, especially in like a next gen upgrade. Like, it's probably going to be more fantastical, which makes me excited.
Yeah,
it's a good
definitely.
choice.
Yeah, I have to say, did I get a wee bit annoyed when I seen that PS5 upgrade coming up? I was like, for goodness sake, I just played this about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
That's a sore one.
But anyway, that's what it is. So that's my number 3. So, Mr. Mac, this is your number 3.
For me, my number 3, it's a game that I played. I think I actually might have played it over the end of last year and then completed into this year. So I've for myself, I've just counted that as games I've beat this year, because it was a fair amount that I played it in the turn of the year. But released last year from Ubisoft, developed over in their Toronto studios, is Far Cry 6. Something that people will probably pick up on is I quite like these kind of games, these Far Cry-esque games where it's you're kind of moving around the map, moving around different areas. You have fairly similar tasks in each of the areas, but as long as there's a kind of stealth option that you can take, and then coupled with some good gunplay and things like that, then I tend to have a pretty decent time. Obviously, there's some co-op elements. I don't usually get too into the co-op stuff. Years gone by, it was only ever really me and Gary that would kind of play games together, and it's not really one that we would play together. I feel like usually I would play a Far Cry game and then Gary would maybe play it 7-8 months later if he was interested in the game. It's not really one that's typically on the radar.
No.
So I quite enjoyed this one. It's not my favourite Far Cry game. I think for me, Far Cry 4 is probably the standout for me. That's the one I kind of went for the platinum trophy in. But still, relatively unchanged loop. Some people kind of find fault in that, hence probably the Metascore of 73. So you can see obviously it's pretty above average, but it's pretty typical kind of score for these kind of games. I enjoy the combat. I enjoy the traversal of these games where you have the different things, the bikes and the off-road jeeps and things. I feel like they really do feel really different to each other, and then the sky kind of traversals in this game alone were pretty fun. They introduced a new vehicle where it was basically like a car plane, where you had a car and you pulled a lever and it kind of put out kind of set of wings, like a kind of tented kind of version of wings or whatever. So you would kind of slowly glide up into the air. The only difficult bit being coming back down again. It had I had quite a difficult time transitioning back from plane logic to car logic. So as you kind of get closer to the earth and you try to switch back into a car, if you kind of tipped wrong or whatever, you would just blow up, purely because of the mechanics of the game. Probably makes sense when you think about the speeds that you're going. You're supposed to kind of glide down. I was trying to like let myself go, and the velocity probably would have caused an explosion. But yeah, I think for a lot of the game, as I say, it is a Far Cry game. So if you've played a Far Cry game, you'll know what to expect. But the one big thing, and the reason why it's probably ended up on this list is the storyline coupled with the villain. This year, I think it just kind of blew me away that the actual the motion capture and everything that came with such a high caliber actor. It was something that we've seen before in Far Cry. We've seen villains before that. I've had one or two that I've seen where I'm like, I cannot fucking wait to kill him. Seriously, cannot wait to kill him. I would love every opportunity to get my hands on this guy, and they do exactly that in this as well. And the main gist of the story is you're trying to incite a rebellion, against effectively against a dictator, and the idea is that this massive island, and it is a pretty sizable map, but if you can compartmentalize the map into the different areas you're getting, it does a good job. It's not like San Andreas, where some of the faults of that was you would maybe go into the new part of the map and they would be like, oh, by the way, you really need to go and see that guy, and he's the way over where you just came from. It doesn't really do that. Like if you go into a certain area, the idea is when you're in that area, there's a difficulty level to that area, or an alert level, I should say. So if you go in there, it's alert level 4, and as you start to gain more allies and cause more of a name for yourself for the rebellion, the guards are supposed to be more frequent, more difficult, so the area kind of ramps up in difficulty for that particular zone. But what you're trying to do is go to each of these areas and recruit the kind of arm of the rebellion. So not everybody is aligned together to start with, but they don't really see it eye to eye with with the dictator. So when you're depending on which way you go, you start to kind of recruit people in a certain order. So you can actually go multiple ways within the map, which again was pretty cool to me, because it meant that if you were playing the game the same time as me, that you would have a total different experience.
Yeah.
I went straight to what was called, I think it was 76 or something. So apologies again, it was January and this is November, but it's these kind of old guys in the hills that you go to recruit, and it's just, again, it's such a small thing, but the mannerisms that they had and the different approach to combat and messages that they wanted to deliver, and how they got their point across was completely different to the kind of hipsters that you come across later in the game. They have a lot of fun elements as well as a Far Cry game. So you wouldn't really have a Far Cry game if you didn't have a bit of silliness to it. And they had a whole range of these special weapons that you could get. I should say that you have one for the full game where you have this kind of backpack attached to you, and you can change out the backpack for different things. EMP grenades, you can heal people, do these different kind of things. I spent the entire game with the same thing. I had these mortars attached to me so you can just shoot rockets at people. And I love stealth, but these things were just class. So that's what I tend to keep on it, because it was my kind of get out of jail free card. When things get too hot, I would just unleash these, and
Can I just say
it was pretty sweet.
Can I just say, I was watching you playing it on Twitch one time, and you had that one. It was like a record player that used
That's
to
what I
shoot
was about
like
to
discs.
get to. Yeah,
It was amazing.
It was so good, and I was so surprised by that, because I knew they had that in the game. I knew that they had a gun, and I knew the gun shot discs out. I was not prepared for the fact that this grinder that I had would play the disc, and the disc would actually sound out, and you could hear Macarena as you were charging it. You were charging the disc to increase the speed, and it would like, hey, and I'm honestly, like, it's ridiculous, because I think the actual, I don't think I clipped it out, to be fair, but I'm sure when I was on the stream, I stopped and I'm like, is that playing the Macarena, like when I'm holding that in, and it was. Pretty crazy. Some of the other guns were a wee bit useless, but that was definitely one of the most fun ones for me, in terms of the special items. And again, I love going for the platinum trophy in games where I've completed it, and I can see that there's maybe a handful of tasks and stuff like that, but I think finishing that game when I did in the likes of January, February was a pretty big release time for me. So I don't think I think that was the main reason why I ended up just kind of ditching that game, because I knew that Horizon and that were coming out. So I wanted to get it complete, and that's what I'd done. I managed to get the online trophies, as I was alluding to earlier. I did play some co-op with our good friend Carl, Serenity Base on Twitter. We played a good few bit. That guy is fucking manic when he's playing this game. Honestly, like, and I love it. I'm here for it. It's great, and he'll tell you himself. But I play games typically. I play loads of games with loads of different people. I play loads of different games, and I play Sea of Thieves with Andy Mac, blah, 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 whatever. It's easy enough. Everybody tends to play that game the same way. I play an endless list of games with a hoodie here, loads of different things. I typically play games like this with Gary. Two of us have the same approach. Stealth.
Yeah.
Stay as quiet as you can. If you're approaching a base, sniper out, talk to each other usually, but we tend to have the same kind of mind approach, where it's just if you can take a guy out and you're not going to get caught, you just take the shot.
Yeah,
I was kind of taking a kind of sneak approach, and then in comes Carl with his assault rifles and decked out like Rambo, just fucking setting about these guys. Just honestly, alarms gone, the whole place, in an uproar, and it was brilliant. Honestly, it was so fun. But honestly, man, like I'm like, right, we need to stay quiet here, because it's easier, by the way, if you stay quiet. So just try and make this easy for us. And so and it's no fault. It's no. I'm not trying to dig at him or anything like that, because it's funny as fuck. I mean, honestly, like we would drive. So I would typically drive. I don't trust him to drive. No fucking danger that he's driving. He wasn't Hoodie at driving in games, right? So I would drive. Now the downplay of this, right? So I would drive, so I would be able to be in control of the direction of where we were heading. The downside is Carol would be the one on the fucking guns. Okay, so we would be driving past the Garda, and he and the guard they would be fucking miles away from us. They'd pass him, and he's like, "Oh, was that a patrol vehicle?" And he'd spin his fucking assault rifle and start shooting them. And I'm like, what the hell? And it'd be like the military was on us, and we couldn't go 2 blocks without him getting the fucking guards on us. So I'd be driving, trying to like fucking take the heat off us, and I'm like, right, okay, that's us, we're good now. And then he would just start shooting people again. Like, I 2 or 3 times I played with him, and we did get the trophies for it. But oh man, I would 10 out of 10. I would recommend playing with Carlo as well. But it was a great co-op experience, that's for sure.
I would like people at home to know, Carl, one of the nicest and sweetest people I've ever met.
Yes.
So this makes it even funnier.
Aye. Honestly.
He's burning down people.
Aye. It's just, he's a totally different person playing that game. And he doesn't do it and sit quiet. He does it and he's fucking laughing through the full thing because he's just having so much fun doing it. He's crazy. But he definitely made my online experience that bit better. So yeah, I think that's probably all the different aspects. Without getting into I don't want to spoil anything or do it, so I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, because some good heavy hitting story beats, and obviously I'm sure everybody can tell where the story ends up in terms of the finale, but what they do, end game and stuff is pretty decent as well. And I would love to pick the game back up when there's maybe a slight lull, but there's just so many games to play, and I'm sure we'll get into that.
Mr. Mac, I'll give you a wee secret. I've asked Santa for it for Christmas, so
there you go.
You might get your wish.
There you go. I'll be able to drag Gary through a platinum run for me, so I can get the rest of my trophies.
Download the Breaking Bad DLC and dress up like Los Pollos Hermanos.
There you go. See, easy. So yeah, I'm happy enough. I did really enjoy playing that. Like I said, it is a huge map, but it's segregated enough, so I wouldn't get too thrown off if anybody does decide to pick up the game and have a look at it. The combat, the traversal, everything about it, it really did make it for me. Hoodie, then we're getting into the interesting bit, right high up there in the lists. Games, special games that we play, the amount of games that you play over the course of the year really hits home. These top 5 favourite games and how kind of valued or how much you hold some games in regard. I think it kind of speaks to personality and things like that. So I don't want to talk up the next pick any more, because if you say something that's fucking absolute nonsense, I'm just turning the podcast off. But number 2, take it away.
Okay, so this was developed by WB Montreal. It released 2022. It is in the Batman universe. It is Gotham Knights at number 2. I'm just joking. I would never pick the game. It's in my dishonorable mentions. No, it's not. It wasn't that bad, everybody. Playing it up. The game wasn't that bad. But
as soon as he said WB, I'm like, he's fucking at
it. My number 2, a game that was my game of the year forever until like the last second. A little game came out, but this number 2 came out 2022. Developer Andrew Schuldice, I want to say. It's on all consoles. The genre is an isometric action, but I like to compare it to a Zelda. It is very much a Zelda game. Tunic is my number 2 because it is a game that does like member berries very well. It's a game that just remember back there. Remember
the case here, I remember.
I remember that. Remember? You remember Zelda? So it remembers Zelda very well, and in a way that I think does it better than Zelda does it. Where I had simultaneously been playing through Death's Door and Tunic, and I immediately dropped Death's Door once I hit a point in Tunic where I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And I'm not going to spoil that because it is actually a story beat. And story is, take it with a grain of salt. There isn't much. There's a story, but it's kind of like an interpretive story, I guess I would say. Uh, there, you're playing a little fox in a world where it's top down. You've got your sword, you've got your shield. You're fighting through. You cut down grass to get gems. You get what Zelda is. So you're playing that style, but as it goes on, you're starting to learn different things, and you're learning those things through a manual. And the manual is very unique because you don't speak the language that's in the manual. So it's all visual, and there are words in it, but you can't read them. So you have to kind of explore that on your own. It's just giving you a frame of reference to get to the conclusion. Yeah, it's there, but it's not what teaches you. You teach yourself through this game. And I think that is a trend through all of these, where I like learning in games and I like exploring what I can and can't do. And when a game tells you, oh, there's nothing you can't do, I get even more excited. And I think Tunic does that, where, oh, if I go here and I do this, will this work? No. Oh, it's because I don't have this yet. So it's that kind of game that brings me back to want to explore that area now. So now I've unlocked this area where it's a graveyard, but I can't go through here, but I don't know why, and nothing's telling me why. So I have to figure that out on my own. I will say, this does. I have not beaten this game because the final boss is very, very hard. It is a very difficult game. I do not say that lightly. It is a game that makes you think that it's easy, and it is not. Uh, it's very adorable. The art style is gorgeous and cute, and I love how like kind of foamy it looks. It looks like everything's made out of cardboard or foam, and then painted over. The fox itself is adorable, but it is going around finding these relics, understanding what they do, bringing them to a different place, and seeing if they work here. So you can ring these bells. You have to ring all these bells to open up the final gateway, and it's very straightforward in that, but it is the challenge. It is the reward of the challenge that makes this game so exciting to me. And I'm going to reference Dark Souls again. It's not a one-to-one to Dark Souls at all in any way outside of, well, it's difficult. But it is that same struggle reward where I get to the end of a fight and yeah, I've been screaming for like 3 hours trying to do this. But by the time I get there and I beat this stupid boss, I'm like, oh, wow. I really accomplished something here. I did something. Like I it wasn't for nothing, because they also do reward you really well, which I think is necessary when you beat a boss in any of these style of games where they're difficult, where I have to feel like, oh, that wasn't just a challenge to do. I also got rewarded for doing it. And the more you level up throughout the world and you get more hearts or you get more magic, and you have to understand how well that magic needs to be used in order for it to be effective, is very interesting, because you only get a finite amount of everything. You get a finite amount of energy, you get a finite amount of lives, you get a finite amount of magic, and all of that, or mana, and all of that matters when you go into a fight, because if you get, the items that you get are spoilers, so I'm not going to spoil them, but if you get an X item, that X item might not be as powerful, but it could be more effective because it has more mana shots. So I could use that longer, and it'll essentially work as an offense or a defense, depending on which boss I'm taking that into battle with. Or do I want to spend my gold here? Because gold is also finite. You don't get endless amounts of it. It's not just readily available. You can farm somewhat, but there's a limit to your farming. And so do I want to buy health, which will permanently increase, Do I want to buy mono, which will permanently increase, or do I want to buy like uh, some other external device that can help me, like a decoy or a trip mine? Any of those things can ultimately help you in a boss, and you have to think about that going into these battles, which I think is really smart and interesting. I know it's not unique to any stretch of the imagination, but it is for this game really well done. It is about that makes this game so great to me, where the loop felt satisfying. I think a lot of these games don't feel satisfying to me, and that's why I fell off Death's Door. Not to say that game isn't good. It just wasn't a loop that I got into where I was like, I don't really care about progressing here as much as I care about getting through Tunic. Like if I beat this boss, I know I'll get somewhere. I know I'm going somewhere and I'm doing something. And even though the story isn't like very in your face, like you don't really know what's going on. You kind of do, and you can interpret it how you want to, but it is more of like, well, I at least know that I have to defeat you. You're like, you're bad, maybe. I'm pretty sure. And I thought that was an interesting way to tell a story where I was like, I'm just basing this off my gut, similar to like a game. It's called Braid, I think I want to say, which was by the same developer who made The Witness, and it was a game that dealt with time. And throughout that game, you would use time, but there's no real story outside of knowing, oh, I have to save the princess. I know that inherently. And the way that game ends is very fascinating. I'm not going to spoil that game, but it was that thing of taking something that I'm familiar with and making me understand that I shouldn't have assumed that. And I think Tunic does that really well, where it takes that Zelda-like and it takes me to places where I go, well, I assume this is what I should do here because this is what Zelda would do. And then you get there and you're like, no, I shouldn't have done that. That just set me back. Now I need to go over. I need to go do this thing. And even though it can be frustrating, it is this similar thing and the trend throughout all my picks where it wasn't exactly the game's fault. It was my fault. I didn't think about this. I didn't open my mind to what this could be or where I should go with this. And I thought Tunic, although isn't like a massive sprawling game or a game that changes the medium like Superliminal did for me, it is a game that did something that other people have done, built upon it, and did it so well and refined that genre so well that I was, by the end of it, and again, I haven't beaten it, but I'm so far in that there's no reason this wouldn't be here, where I was like, I will be satisfied no matter what, because I know what this did for me to get here, and I know the challenges that I faced to get here, and I know the power that I've gained, and going back to locations that I've been in the beginning that were so hard for me are now just a walk in the park. Like all of that, I carry on my back, and I realize how much momentum I did have looking back. And I think, wow, that is so cool to look back at your experience and go, whoa, I really did move here. I did something here because I am more powerful. I know what I'm doing. I have, I don't have endless swords or anything like that. I have one sword, but I know how to use that sword really fucking well now. I really know how to use that sword. And that is interesting to me, where most games they'll give you like 40 different weapons. Yeah, it's fun to play a game like Far Cry where you go through the world and you throw CDs at people or you blow them up or whatever. And that variety is really fun. But when you learn how to use one weapon so well that you didn't need any others, that's interesting to me in a way that I don't think a lot of games that I play at least do that. So that was unique to me.
Yeah.
And
I think the last time I had that was with Jedi Fallen Order. That's the last time I had that. I think it was the second level, and I was like, I'm pure struggling with this game. I was like, I'm not sure if I like this. And it's not until you keep going and going, and then you go back again. And I went back, and you're absolutely destroying all the people that like gave you like harassed you at the start, and you're just destroying them. Absolutely no bother, and you're like, oh, I've like totally upgraded and mastered this game. It's amazing when a game actually makes you feel like that.
Yeah, it really is. It is a moving experience for me when, like you said, with Jedi, I did get to the end and I was like, oh, I am a Jedi. Like, I feel embraced by that. I feel my power. And I think it doesn't even come from a skill tree in Tunic. Like, you don't really necessarily upgrade that much outside of like the amount of stuff you can use. But like again, your sword is your sword. You can get damage boosters and you can get charms that'll help you throughout it, which is nice. But those again, few and far between. So a lot of the time it is, can you get smart? Like, is that
Yeah.
an ability you can do as a person? Can you get smart here? Because the game's not going to let you. So I thought that was really fun and interesting. Also, there are things that you learn about the world later on where you're like, oh, I went behind this waterfall, but at the beginning of the game, I didn't think I could go behind a waterfall. So I go back to the first level and I go, have there been any waterfalls around here that I could go behind? You know, like I start to think about the world differently too, because I did get to a point where I found an underground bunker, and in it I could change the color of my shirt, the color of my fox. I could change the way he looked minimally, but it was that little special thing of, oh, shoot, I could have been playing the whole game looking like this. But at the same time, it was fun to discover that. Like, how
Yeah.
many people knew that was there? Because I sure didn't. It's like behind a rock and a bush, and it's down, and you turn left, and then there's a couple of bells, and you don't know what those bells do, and you like it's all that thing of it is a game that does not hold your hand, will never hold your hand, and by the end of it, you're kind of glad it didn't, because I was there and I felt like, no, I earned this. I did this. This was me. So I really loved Tunic for that. I really, really loved that game. Also, on Game Pass, another one that you can, if you haven't, pick up and play it.
Well, those boos are coming from our very own Gary Moore. Gary, bring your number 2 to the table.
So, Hoodie, I think your spider sense should be tingling because my number 2 is Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Yes.
Made by Insomniac Games, and it was out on the 12th of November 2020. Now, this game, I'm one of the people. It's like, how many Spider-Man games do we need? You know, I loved the Spider-Man game for Insomniac, the first one. It was great, but you know when they're like, oh, making Miles Morales, I'm like, oh, for God's sake, how can we do this? No, I never played it for a year. I left it for a year, and I obviously played it in the last year. And I played it at Christmas, and I was like, this game is phenomenal. Not only is it phenomenal, I actually think it might be better than the first game. I think, as Hoodie was saying earlier, he stole my point talking about Manhattan in Christmas time. You know, I wrote here that I think it's the most festive game I've ever played since Bully. You know, you totally feel that Christmas winter feeling in this game, and it totally changed Manhattan as well. Again, that's another thing I always have with Spider-Man games. It's like the Spider-Man 2 game coming out, and it's like, oh, we're back in New York again. It's like, how many times are we going to be in New York before this starts to get boring? And with this, we just making it winter and just making it a different character, it totally changed the game. Going through Manhattan when you're seeing all the Christmas decorations up and stuff like that was so good. And that first opening section when you're, that's no spoilers, literally this opening section, when you're riding on Rhino and you're going through the supermarket, you're going through the mall,
Yeah.
and it's playing Christmas music and stuff like that. It's just like, oh my god, how more Christmassy can you get? I think Miles as a character is actually, I prefer him than Peter. You know, everybody knows Peter Parker. You know, he's that pure cheesy Spider-Man. You know, he's fighting Scorpion. He's like, oh, I bet that stung. You know, when I don't think Miles isn't like that. Miles, I think, is like what you would be like as a Spider-Man. You know, see if we just tomorrow, boom, we're Spider-Man, and we go out and like stuff happens, like somebody goes to hit him or he punches somebody and he's like, oh, ouch. Like it just reacts like a normal person would react. And that's what I quite like about Miles. Also, Miles' story, I felt like Peter's always about like the entire New York. He's always about the big picture New York, where I felt like Miles was like, he's like a baby Spider-Man, and he only concentrates, he's not only concentrated, but it felt more like a local story It felt like, I can't remember where he's from. I don't know if it's Harlem. I could just be making that up. Hell's Kitchen, something. I don't know. I don't know my parts of New York. But whatever part he's from, the story was all kind of stuck in that bit. No, that it didn't go outside it, but it was like it really only affected his neighbourhood, which I really liked. I felt like it was a totally different story for a Spider-Man, especially in a game, because as most games, you're always just playing as Peter Parker. So I really liked that. I liked that it kind of goes through the motions of Miles kind of struggling with being Spider-Man and trying to keep his friends and try to keep his mum happy and his social life and stuff like that. I liked it. They kind of skirted on that, especially at the end. No spoilers, but especially at the end, there's a big payoff at the end. Being I can't say it, but there's a big payoff at the end that you're just like, oh, everybody's got his back kind of thing, and it's a moment you can't help but just feel happy about. The costumes and stuff like that are really cool. I really like being like a darker like Spider-Man costume wise. I think that always looks cooler than the red and blue. I don't know why. And also you get Spider Cat or Spider Man. I think he's literally called Spider Man. I think the cat. You get him in a backpack, and it is the cutest thing ever.
Yeah.
And I played this in PlayStation 5, and can I just say, this game is beautiful on PlayStation 5. I've never noticed like reflections until I played this game, and I don't know how many pictures I took of this game, and it was literally like me swinging through Manhattan with just reflections. I was just taking reflection pictures on cars, on side of the buildings. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
This game, brilliant from beginning to end in its understanding of what they've already built in the Sony Spider-Man Insomniac universe that they're clearly working out here, and taking the lessons from the first 2018 game and going, what can we refine here? I think that is a key word in Miles Morales, is like refinement. Oh, our story was great in 2018. Well, could we make it more concise? Could we get to the point instead of having what I felt was like? I've played through that game 7 times. I love the 2018 Marvel's Insomniac Spider-Man, right? It's brilliant to me. But it was a thing of, you get to a point where you're like, okay, we're still doing this. Oh, now we're fighting Vulture and we're fighting Electro, and we're fighting, like, all of these things start to feel dragged out, where Miles feels like it is what they want. They know what they're doing. It is straight to the point. There is no bloat. The side quests are more creative, I think, this time around, and especially in the way that you access them. Him creating that app to open up these side quests, like, it's people in his neighborhood being like, I need your help getting my cat out of a tree. And I'm like, that's super fun. That feels like friendly neighborhood Spider-Man that was missing from Insomniac's 2018, where, like you said, Peter is fighting for New York, where Miles is fighting for a borough. Like, he is fighting for the borough of New York, and that's it. And, like, if anything else happens, like, I'll try to stop it, but right now I need to keep my people safe and happy and protected. And you feel that with every interaction you have on that app too, where by the end of it, I knew some of those people. Like, I understood who they were because I had met them, because I had played their side quests. They weren't just like, hey, can you go get my pigeons? No, I knew the pigeon guy. I knew who that was. And I thought that was such a smart thing to do. And it was so personal, like you said, and it was an intimate story in the best way possible without feeling like you're losing any of the fun set pieces or bigger consequences. Like, I felt there was stakes, and by the end of it, definitely. There really were. Like, I felt the impact of what Miles had done. I felt the impact of what New York had now felt from not only the consequences of his choices and actions, but the other people within that story and what they did. Miles also just gets the details right. It's the little things, the way he jumps off a building and does like a backflip, or falls forward, or looks at his phone, or any of those things. The way he swings is so kind of like a so I don't even know. Like he's just so loose when he swings and
Goofy
free and
is the kind of one I was.
goofy.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
because he is a kid and he acts like a kid, and that's how he should be. Like you said, if
He
any of us
he
with
does
Spider
that. He
Man,
does the stuff that you always see in like the first Spider-Man movies, where he's always like swinging, but he's like waving his arms and
yes,
he lands, but he's never landing just straight on his feet. He's landing
yep,
and he's taking like 3 or 4 steps before he
yep.
likes control.
Yeah, I mean, it is feeling that momentum too, where I am going, and I don't think I'd have that much control. And of course, you could argue, Peter's been doing it for several years now. He's got
Yeah,
control, he has precision. But when I watch Amazing Spider Man 2, watching Andrew Garfield swing through New York is so much more fun than any other Spider Man because he does the thing where it's like, whew, I'm just hoping I get somewhere and not die. Like I'm
yeah,
free, I'm jumping, I'm moving, I'm running on walls, I'm doing backflips, like all these things, and you feel that. And the nature of Miles's powers are different, and how he uses them in the world are also just fun. Like I can do a double jump midair because I don't know if that's a spoiler for people. You get it really early, but I'm not going to say it. You get a certain power, and you can do double jumps with that in midair for while you're swinging, and like that's fun and cool and freeing. And I just felt like the city was also brighter. The whole world, at the Christmas time, the holiday season for everybody is really felt in that world. It is a
definitely.
character. It is a part of that, and I just think it makes New York so much better. It's just so much like my spoilers for No Way Home at this point, but my favorite part of No Way Home is the end where he's like swinging past the Rockefeller tree, and I'm like, it's just friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and that's what Miles is. He's like the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and I love that.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a great choice.
There's probably not a lot that I can weigh in on. Actually, the twos have probably covered most of the different things. I'm in the same boat as you. I feel like there's very few games that could refine the elements of a game and improve on the game by doing that. I think there was a lot of filler in the first game, but that's fine. It wasn't like a good album. Every good album needs a good bit of filler, and it wasn't a negative point. I still platinumed both games as probably
Mm-hmm.
the two U's as well. But it was something about that game, and I kept trying to convince Gary to kind of play it sooner because, and I don't do that with a lot of games, but for that game when it landed for me at Christmas, um, I I felt the cold almost. It was just that kind of Christmas vibe. I really couldn't put the game down. In fact, I messaged Gary, I think, on New Year's Eve saying that's me completed it. I don't think I'll go for the platinum. And then by New Year's Day, I was like, oh, that's me got the platinum because I just
Yeah.
it's such an easy platinum to get compared to most games. There's not as many trophies, I don't think, anyways, is the original game. But what you can do is kind of flip it to easy and skip all the cutscenes, and and it still doesn't really take too much away for the game because it just has a great feel to it. You just feel as if you're a wee bit better, but it's important that we don't spoil the game. I'm definitely with
yeah,
Gary, that part that he mentioned with the neighbours and stuff, and it's a real tear jerking moment when that
yeah,
happens. It's such a an important part of the story beat. As so as all the other kind of plots and twists and reveals. If I can at least hint to that, so it was pretty good. Even the small elements where you're just walking around inside the apartment near the start, and you're picking the jazz records, and you're finding out
yeah,
more stuff that you don't need to know. We know what happened in the past. We know what's happened in the first game to Mouse's dad and things like that. But you just little conversations and little tidbits and things like that, and having those different dynamics into it, because it feels like, as much as you do have a relationship in the first Spider-Man with Doc or whatever, and MJ and stuff, it doesn't feel like a proper relationship. It feels almost like an avoidance. Whereas this game, very much is building on kind of relationships, and then obviously building on that kind of bond with him creating the app, and he's in on it and all that stuff. Like,
Yep.
it's good.
Yep.
Really,
I
really
think
pivotal
that's
game.
that's the total, what you just said there is total the difference between the first one and the Miles Morales. Is the first one, it starts very strong and all the characters, so you're building and building, and then by the end it just like blows its load, and it's just like, oh, here's more, here's more, here's more, here's more, and you're just like, no, 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 I don't need that. Just gives like a truncated story. It's just about like a couple of people. You don't need to just throw everything at me. I understand that it's supposed to be like Spider-Man and he's already did a lot of stuff, but you don't need to smash me with everything. You don't need to smash me with every single Spider-Man character that's gone. Whereas I felt Miles was a good part. Like, was good for me because it felt like another origin story, and I don't really know Miles. I've don't really have. I've never watched that, the whatever it's called. Don't even know what that animated film's called. I've never watched that either.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes, I've never watched
Okay.
that.
Oh, you should watch that. You
Oh,
need
I've
to
you
seen
gotta
watch
this.
it.
watch that.
I've seen the start of it, but I fell asleep.
Oh no, you gotta go
So
watch it.
I didn't need to watch it. So it was
We
good
should
to
we
get
should do a review of that.
Honestly,
definitely.
if that gets you to watch it.
So it was good to get an origin story for Miles. For me, obviously he's in the 2018 one, but it was good to get that kind of building up to be Spider-Man story.
Yeah.
And his story, as Sean said, it felt like every relationship and everything that happens was meant to happen, and you're not just getting all these random characters from anywhere. It's just put in. It was just everybody was there and had a place in the story.
Yeah,
Also,
and it's so. Yep, you go to.
I feel like it's the only game I can think of that retroactively makes the first game better. Where,
Definitely.
like you were saying, Mac, looking at the records, well, now I care about Jefferson more. Like, I care more about him in
Yep.
the first one. I think that's super interesting and cool, and I love that because I've seen that in movies or TV shows, but I've never seen that for a game.
I mean, how many people probably played 2018 and you do the Miles parts, and it's just like the bits where you're like doing stealth and stuff like that, and you're like, oh, like why am I playing this a Spider-Man game? I want to like get to actually being Spider-Man, but as you said, like you're getting this second part, and you're like, right, this was all worth it now.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. I think the last kind of point before I move on to my number two is probably I'm not entirely sure. I had to kind of take a break during the discussion, so I'm not sure if any of you touched on the music for this game, but that opening sequence where he's listening to his music and stuff, and I think culture is such a big thing in this game, and the statements that they've made in this game with the Black Lives Matter on the side of the wall and all that stuff. Really, I think it probably actually brought a tear to my eye even seeing that kind of thing. But that opening sequence, where he's kind of walking down the streets and he's very much, he's got his own style and his own vibe, and very right for that the first right for the get go. He's he's different. He's something else. And I just felt like they had those kind of headphones on, and the music just totally fits what it is that they're looking to kind of bring to the table. And he sets his headphones off and they adjust the volume, but you can still kind of slightly hear it or whatever. And then as it kicks in, and I think he gets him back on and he goes, and it's just the music kind of picks up again, and it's definitely one of those kind of touching the heart moments. Just being able to kind of raise the game that bit further, just by introducing another element, because you don't typically have a kind of musical element to a Spider-Man game, and they've just totally introduced a brand new culture by having a totally polar opposite Spider-Man, but equally just making it just as good, and if not better, as we've discussed. So
I think
Yeah.
what the last thing I want to say for it is I think it's strange to have a game that's a sequel to be you're basically a weaker Spider-Man, but I think the game is actually better.
Yeah.
aye,
Yeah.
which
aye.
is totally strange. Like you just
Aye.
think it would be the most powerful, it would be better, but I don't know. There's something
Aye.
about that. Just being the up and comer, the underdog, if you like.
Right.
The story, it just totally made it for me.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Also, if you have PlayStation Extra or Premium or whatever the equivalent is for your region,
Yay!
it's free on there. It's
There you go.
you go play there,
Yeah,
or just pick it up on sale right now. So it's
go
great.
for it. 20 out of 10 would recommend.
Yep.
So my number 2, despite what Hoodie says, I enjoyed this game. My number 2 is Death's Door, right? So released in 2021 with a Metacritic of between 87 and 89, depending on what platform. So fucking suck that, Hoodie.
Okay.
Developed by Acid Nerve and published by Devolver Digital. So it's pretty much the same vein as what they said is Tunic. A wee bit more Metroid Convania type game, as opposed to the kind of boss battle S type thing. You get into different zones within a map and kind of solving. You're trying to obtain 3 souls kind of thing to unlock, or 3 keys kind of thing to unlock a door, which kind of takes you to the next point, where you eventually kind of face off against the bosses. So you generally it's a similar idea where you're kind of ramping up and you're kind of gaining experience, and then spending the kind of points in the kind of store type thing to try and kind of upgrade your weapons and your movement and all that kind of stuff to try and improve and get better. So it's not quite as fine tuned as Tunic, and I probably missed my opportunity way in on Tunic. I've not played it. It's something I was very interested in playing, but I ended up watching Rahul play a lot of it. So kind of similar to how Gary probably feels with Resident Evil Village, watching me playing it. You feel like it's familiar, even though you've not played it. So I'll probably in the end end up skipping Tunic, but I felt like when somebody pointed me in the direction of Death's Door, and by the way, it's available in a lot of different consoles and stuff. So if keep your eye out for some sales, to kind of pick this one up, because I definitely think it's worthwhile. It does stack up well in the genre. I found a couple of times that direction was lacking a wee bit, in terms of where I was supposed to be maybe heading next, what I was supposed to be doing next, because it was quite easy to get stuck or lost or whatever. There was a lot of different things in certain areas where it was very much, by the way, you can come back here later and unlock this thing if you wanted to once you've got something else, but I think it introduced a lot of different mechanics and puzzle solving mechanics throughout the different zones that really kept the game quite fresh for me. I enjoy the challenge of facing different areas and enemies and things like that. And for me, it was a really good podcast game. I listened to a few podcasts playing that game, because it didn't really have much story. There was obviously a lot of your story, who you are and what the Death's Door is and the end boss and things like that, but which was another thing. But what a boss battle, those kind of last parts of the game. I've not been stuck on a boss like that for a long time. It's pretty tough, but something that I thought to myself, that if something is kind of small as this, because it's a short game as well, there's something as short and as a small game as this, it can't be too difficult, especially because it has a kind of hit system and things like that. But there's a few areas in that game that they definitely kind of wear you down, and that boss battle was definitely one of them. In terms of traversal and things like that, they keep it pretty basic. It is isometric again, just as what Hoodie was talking about with kind of Tunic. Obviously it's very very similar, and in that vein where you kind of get up in different kind of levels and things like that, and unlocking different doors to get through the map. So I'd say it was definitely a lighter version of Tunic in the way of difficulty. It seems anyway. I've not played Tunic, but there's a lot more puzzle solving elements, and I've seen a fair share of that kind of thing in Tunic as well. But I feel like that is more focused on the boss fights, which I feel like someday I will be able to play it. To be honest with you, but I seen enough of it that I was like, I think that game is really good, but there's just so many other games to play. So yeah, as much as my game was Death Store, and I'm talking about the two, Death Store and Tunic, and the one kind of breath. It very much is a kind of hand in hand trade off with the two of them. But for me, I chose to play Death Store, and I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
So Hoodie, over to yourself then. The creme de la creme, the number one pick. What you got for us?
Listen, this is going to be a shock to literally no one. This game has been my game of the year since I played it.
No Man's Sky.
It was No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky.
Bandits update. Wow. What an incredible update. It introduces what I like to call Crash Bandicoot. And it was really good. So, my number one, 2022, Dev Splash Team. It's on all consoles. The genre is listed as a platform adventure. Yeah, maybe. It's more of a Pikmin game because this is Tinykin. Tinykin, one of the greatest games I've ever played, not just this year, of all time. I love this game. This game spoke to me on a level where I traveled back in time. Imagine this. Little Hoodie sitting in front of the TV. He's got his little controller, his fat little thumbs playing against the controller as he's going through Pikmin, a game he adored and nobody else knew about except him in the world. So he was playing that game all day and all night. And Tinykin took me right back there. I was playing this game, and I say this as the greatest compliment I can give a game. I did not realize what time it was when I got done playing it. I didn't realize I had been playing it for 6 hours. I had to get up. That's how long I had been playing it. I didn't even get to sleep because I was like, oh, this is great. Yeah, no, it's been maybe 20 minutes? I haven't been playing that long. I've almost beaten the game. It was so much fun. Like, I just lost time. I lost any sense of the world. I just was so immersed in like collecting things. It's a little bit of a collectathon too, so if you get your itches scratched from that kind of game, it's great for that. It is like you've mentioned a podcast game. It's great on every level. So you're playing this little guy, this little person, and this little person is going. He's tiny because you're in this giant house. So you're like the size of like an ant at this point, and there are you go through these different worlds throughout the house, and each one is run by a different like bug insect that kind of controls that section of the world. The ants control I'm not going to spoil any of the worlds because they're fun to see because they're really big and fun to explore. But the main thing is with this game is the art style is what grabbed me. I was like, oh, I don't know what this game is, but this looks adorable. And it just came out on Game Pass. Again, if you got Game Pass, great place to find games. Sponsor us, Xbox. But I saw it on Game Pass. I was like, I gotta play this. I downloaded it, and the art style is a mixture of 3D worlds. The environments are generally 3D, but you are a 2D character. So you are this character that can control these things called Tinykin. They're essentially Pikmin. If you've ever played a Pikmin game, it's pretty much that. Each one has their own ability. So the Tinykin can be super strong, or you can control them to electrocute certain things, or you can control, so on and so forth. Some of them can blow up, so you could open up different areas. And you collect these tinykins in different worlds, and some worlds have this tinykin, other worlds don't have that one. And you have to play around with the puzzles that way to get the resources throughout each level and collect those things in order to ultimately unlock the main MacGuffin of that world, usually like a bottle cap or something that the bugs want. And it's really fun because you do look at these worlds like, yeah, they're massive and giant, kingdoms and things like that, but they're like, minor spoiler, they're all made out of toilet paper. Like, for us, it's just everyday household items, but similar in the vein of like a Grounded, where you do feel that sense of like perspective. It is so much fun to look up at what to me is like a soda bottle, and I could pick it up right now and it's no problem. But in that world, it's like Mount Everest, and I'm like, how am I gonna get up this Coca-Cola bottle? Oh, this is gonna be crazy. The traversal is really fun. You do unlock a bar of soap, so you can get around the world faster, and you use it kind of like a skateboard. So you're, skateboarding around the world on a bar of soap. It's really fun that way. The story is really quirky. Again, similar to the last campfire, I wanted to talk to everybody because everyone has like some kind of, weird dialogue or conversation they're having with another bug, and you're kind of like eavesdropping on them. But, some people are like, complaining about the dictator that they have, or like, oh, I should have voted for that. Like, weird conversations and dialogue that I'm like, oh, there's infighting going on here. It doesn't impact the story, but it's interesting to build out that world and fill out the blanks of what all these bugs are going through, or like the way they talk about humans being gods, essentially. Like, the god of the household's gone now. What are we gonna do? Like, oh, okay, that's wait, why is the god of the household gone? And that's a part of the story. You start to learn more about the house, which I thought was a cool twist to these environments. Like, oh, why is the house, like, why is there a toilet paper kingdom? It's because it's all in disarray. Nobody lives here. Where did they all go? And you're slowly learning throughout your travels in that world what happened to the owners of this house. Why are you the only one that can control these tinykin? Why aren't you a bug? Is another thing. You are like a little astronaut person, and you're here to kind of bring everybody back together and unite them in order to solve the bigger mystery. And I think that was also a really fun part of it, where most of the indie games I played this year weren't very story driven outside of the last campfire, and this one had the most story, and I really loved the story as well. Yeah, but there's nothing about this game I didn't love. I loved everything about it, and I can't recommend it enough. It's such just a fun time. It's just fun. And I think that's what I love about video games the most, outside of them giving me an experience I couldn't do elsewhere. It's that I had fun. So I loved it. It brought me back to my childhood, and it is my number one. I love Tiny King.
It's very looking at it. It was like, it looks very much like Adventure Time or something like that. It's kind of it's got very much like that kind of. I wouldn't say like Rick and Morty, but it's kind of got like that kind of animation-y, kind of older looking animation. It's no childish, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
looks really cool. Looks really cool. Sounds really cool. It's definitely something. All the games you spoke about, that's something that definitely intrigues me, because I really liked that when we played. What was that game, Sean? It Takes Two. I really liked that concept, that kind of Honey I Shrunk the Kids concept. Everything, as you said, like everything's different perspectives and just how you're looking at the world and world. So it's definitely something that I think I'll keep a wee eye out on.
Yeah,
I'd like to play that again. By the way, the rest of the You just literally said it, and I
It
can't
takes
get
two.
for some reason I was totally blanked on that.
That's
I would
because
like
it's
to.
45 years long. That's how.
I'd like to have finished the rest of that because we played so much of it. But
Yeah,
I've actually played a lot of the Tinykin as well. I'd actually seen it on Game Pass and added it to my play later, and I think literally like a week later, Hood had mentioned it, and I thought to myself, you know, I'm definitely going to check this out now that he's said it, because it's such a gripping tile card for it, you know, in terms of on Game Pass, like that art style really kind of stuck out, and you know, because obviously with Game Pass, um, you know, I spend a lot of my Sundays, myself and obviously Mrs. Mac, the two of us, we'll, you know, watch or binge watch, you know, TV series and stuff like that. But I get the itch for playing something while we're doing that, and all my you know, my consoles and things are upstairs. So typically I'll kind of I'll play a Switch game or something, but with the advent of Games Pass, I've been playing some stuff on my phone. Usually it's something like Slay the Spire and things like that, you know, lend themselves to a small screen, and you're able to kind of play those kind of games. I tried Tinykin on it, and it's just you know, no bueno, couldn't really control it properly. But I did figure out that there's a way of playing Game Pass on an iPad, so you know, pretty decent iPad, and that's the way I was playing that game. There was a few times where there was some screen tearing and stuff, but that's more to do with connection than anything else, obviously. But for that kind of game, like where there's no like immediate threat, you know, generally the only threat you have is falling, and which I did quite a lot of. But when you fall, it's such a good thing where it's instantaneous. You're back to where you were before you jumped down. So there's no real risk. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if you wanted to try and like get to a certain area, you know, there's like a kind of bubble that you kind of float. And you manage to kind of upgrade it, and you can increase the duration for your floating. But if you're trying to like, oh, I want to get over there into that bit, you know, I'm just going to try. You know, there's nothing to stop. You know, there's nothing to lose. You
Yep.
don't lose points, stars, whatever. You just, you know, you literally just go. And the other thing that I felt was pretty good is as you collect, because that's effectively you're collecting the Tinykin to use them. Typically, the strength ones is the one you're trying to collect, because usually a certain item requires a certain number of them to be able to lift the item to move it to the place that you want it to go. But as you collect each of the variants of Tinykin, you're literally running, and they're all running around you wherever you go. So you're jumping, and then they're following you. And it's not like lemons; they're fucking all around you, just you know, going with you. And sometimes you can actually become kind of blind to them, but generally, like if you're in a room, they're fucking there with you. And there's nothing that will prepare you more for such a funny sight than you telling them, right, on you go, blast that thing for me there, and then they just go and do it. You're not telling them where to go; they know where to go. They're just walking away with it, with us like ants, just
Yeah.
walking along this path with them. It's honestly like there's never been a game, and honest, I was trying to, if I'd finished this game, I've got 2 areas left, I think. It would have made this list. Two reasons. I was almost close to calling it and just saying fuck it, I'm putting it on. The only reason that I thought I don't want it is because I didn't want to even speak about it, because I knew where it would place on hoodies. So I wanted to kind of leave off the table completely. Plus, I wanted to finish it. Again, it's only 1 or 2 areas. I know kind of where it's going, but that I honestly thought that, right, okay, I get this. You know, it's a collectathon. I'm collecting the pollen. I'm collecting, you know, these things, and we're doing different stuff. But getting to the end of a zone of a room effectively, and knowing that you've not collected every single piece of pollen. I'm like, do you know what? See, if this was a PlayStation game and there was a fucking platinum attached to this, I would go and find them. But I just
Yeah.
wanted to get to end it, because typically with games, especially with a game like that, I tend to try and make sure that I just keep on it, so I don't give it any breathing space to fall out of the the rotation. So it's one that I'll definitely get back into. I don't think I've played it for the last couple of Sundays, but it might be one to pick up this week, because it definitely it works. Honestly, it works so well. If anybody's dubious and they have Games Pass, then check it out on that. I think Hoodie mentioned that it was on all consoles. Does that
Yep.
mean it's on Switch? Because
Yeah, it'd be a perfect Switch game. Like the entire time I
it's
played it, I was like, "Oh
yeah,
man, if you could just grab this and go while you're watching TV or something." Amazing.
it's perfect. Like I said, there's no threat, so you could
Yeah,
literally put the controller down and pick it back up again. If there is whatever you were doing, and there'd be nothing displaced. It's just it's really good. That kind of um, it's not problem solving, because you actually effectively do it. I mean, I don't know about you, but some of the times, there's, like, for example, one of the things is you can collect letters, and you've got to post the letters in a post box somewhere
yeah,
in the room. And one of the rooms, I actually had the two letters before I even found where the post box was, because
yeah,
I was obviously playing on like such a small screen that I couldn't see the other side of the room. That's how big the rooms were,
yeah,
on a smaller screen. So it definitely enhanced my experience. I feel it felt like I was in a much smaller area, because without getting into spoilers, like, you could be climbing something that takes you onto a piano, and you're in that corner of the room for ages, but then you turn around and you've not even explored like the vast majority of the room, because there's so many different things and so many different ways to explore and get around and unlock different ways to get back up to those points of the map as well. So
yeah.
for me, it's one of those games that you could I think anybody could pick up and play one of these games, because as I say, there's no real threat, no real thing. And the different like, I mean, I thought I'd seen everything in the game, and then the electricity thing came around, and I'm like, oh my god! Like, it's not just like, oh, go and electrocute that. Like, Hoodie very much undersold the nature of how you do this. Like, you're supposed to.
Yeah.
There's like typically there'll be like a socket, and then there'll be a wire somewhere else, and you've collected enough of these conductible tinykin, and you've basically tell one to right sit there, and it'll show you this electric charge that runs to it, and then you'll tell the next one, right, sit here, and the electric charge will go between them, and you're basically making a daisy chain, all the way
Mhm.
to the cable. And for me, like, I'm like, honestly, there's just the game is just the mechanics of the game, for such a simple game for what it is, and that's such a simple art style. Like, there's not a lot of loading either. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just one of those games that I'm glad that you probably spoke about it, because as much as I added it to my play later, I don't think I'd have picked it up without your backing. So shout out to you.
I mean that is a huge compliment. So thank you, because like I think this game, and yeah, I'm oversimplifying a lot of it because I try not to overwhelm anybody with, like, there is a lot that you can do with the game, but it is mainly the fun aspect that I took away from it. Where I grew up with the Pikmin games and I love the Pikmin games, right? I think this does it better than those ever did, in a way that's just so not only streamlined, but it does have mechanics in there later on where you're like, I couldn't get up there. Why couldn't I get up there? Oh, well, it's because I didn't use this correctly. Oh, I can get there now. Or if I do this, oh, that thing is across the room, but I can't upgrade my bubbles. So I should probably go collect all the stuff in the other room so I can upgrade my bubbles for this room. And things like that are all over the place. And I love, collectathon games. They're really just turn your brain off and enjoy what you're doing style. And I think this does that and does it so well that it also feels engaging. Like I never felt like the world was boring. Everywhere I looked was something I wanted to look at. Uh, Everywhere I went was somewhere I wanted to explore. The introduction to every Tinykin has a small animated cutscene, which is really fun. And I think the animation in this is really well done. It's very kind of Gravity Falls esque. So I love the look of this world. I love the feel of this world, and every time I think about it, I just feel happy about it. Like it's just a happy game to me. Where I'm like, that's not something that generally is found in video games, or I have to think too much, or I have to do something, or it's sad, or whatever have you. I don't know, but most games just aren't pure happiness. Like it's just a delightful game, and that's all it cares to be. It's not trying to change the world. It's just trying to make you have a good time for a little while. So, it's also a game like you were saying. Oh, if it had a platinum, I almost went back to get all the achievements, but then I thought there is something about that a platinum that makes it
Aye.
more meaningful. So I might actually just buy this on PlayStation now and get the platinum that way, because it's like, well, I mean, I'd be game to go through this whole thing again. It is also not a very long experience. I think it's like 8 hours in total. So, you can pick up, play, drop it, like Max said, go away, come back. It's all the same. It's very fun, very good loop. But yeah, the second I got done with it, I mean, even before that, but like the second I got done with it, I was like, there's nothing that could top this. I'm currently in honorable mentions. There's a game I will mention that I'm 26 hours into, and you'd all find it hard to believe, but not even that could top it. So I just think this game did something for me on a level that I didn't think I would experience again. So I was very happy. But, I think I've spoken enough about my number one. Gary, what's your number one?
So I feel like I'm a bit cheating here on my number one because I've already played this game before, but I played it again this year, and I spent the last 2.5 months playing it, and so I just feel like, you know what, it just has to go on here again. So my number one is Red Dead
Trouble.
Redemption 2. By Rockstar, came out 20th of October 2018.
Indie
A wee
studio.
bit, a wee tiny bit of trivia for Rockstar. This game got nominated for 72 awards and won 25. So that's pretty impressive for a
Yeah.
game. What can you say that's not been said about Red Dead Redemption? Nothing really. It's a game you just you live and breathe cowboy. Arthur Morgan is probably my favourite character of all time in a video game. I think he's such a well developed character. His arc for being the bad guy, and then when you go all the way through the game, and he's kind of like a good bad guy. If you wish to play that way, that's the way I play. That arc is just so sweet, and it just you feel every moment, every bit of the story beat, and you can see the progression of him thinking his life wasn't she maybe shouldn't have done that anymore, and and you just feel it. You feel Arthur Morgan's emotion towards like, the things that he's done towards his other gang members, and he goes for maybe a character that's maybe selfish to a character that really is starting to care about other people. He's starting to realise his life isn't great, and he's trying to make it a bit better for everybody else. Um, I think this game is one of the best open world games I've ever played in my entire life. I said a few times, I don't know if it was last time or the time before, like, I don't even like run through this game most times. I'm just like literally on my horse, like just trotting along. I just live and breathe in this game. the atmosphere of the game, I think it's so relaxing. Even when you're in the wilderness, there's nothing there. I think it's such a relaxing game. But I also think, even though it's such an open wilderness and it's supposed to be obviously in 1890s or whatever it's supposed to be in, it feels so lived in. It's totally different from cyberpunk. You know, it's supposed to be a sprawling city. You're expecting to see people, but in this, it's an open world. There's forests and everything else, but still, it still managed to feel lived in. You know, you'll have random encounters where you're walking by people who are hunting, who are fishing, who are just sitting camping. You know, how many times have you had a random encounter in Red Dead when you're just walking by and somebody's getting attacked by wolves? You know, it just doesn't happen in every game. Rockstar just moulded this game, and it's just complete perfection in my mind. I think also with this game, there's lots of aspects I think they did well that I don't know if they would have people would have thought they'd have put in. You know, simple things like the horse mechanic. You know, like building a relationship with your horse, upgrading your horse, changing its appearance, and not even just one horse. You can have a stable full of horses, which I think was really good. This time that I played it, I had the same horse the entire time that I played it. I had a stable full of horses, but I just ended up keeping the same one the entire playthrough, which was even more effective towards the end. No spoilers. um, I think the game and the story wise, when you've got your full gang with Dutch and stuff like that, seeing Dutch's rise to power and his fall for grace is such a great part of this story because you've seen his demise in Red Dead Redemption 1. That's if we've played that game, we've all been there. So actually seeing Dutch in his most powerful point is like one of his powerful points in his life, and you see what the gang, it just makes Red Dead Redemption 1 that much better. I think even this game has such custom built. Well, I don't even know what the word is. Customability. Just making words up now. Putting Arthur, you know, his hair grown, his beard grown. You can shape it. You can cut it. You can cut his hair. You can put different clothes on him. You can change his guns. You can change the gun's appearance. Everything in this game is just live and breathe. This is a total RPG for me. This is, if you're talking about a role playing game, this is my role playing game. This is the game I can go back to. I'll put this away now and I won't touch it for another 2-3 years. But see, in that moment, I feel like I want to play a cowboy game. I'll be back on that, and you, you can bet myself that I'll be playing it for another 70 hours. This is a game that I've played through 3 times, and you're talking about 2018. So 4 years, I've played this 3 times, and I've played it start to finish each time. I think that speaks volumes of how long that game is and how much that I can actually play it. But that's kind of my Red Dead Redemption. As I say, that everybody knows Red Dead Redemption 2, you know. But there's not much else you can say about it. One thing I'm going to say is, Rockstar, get your fucking fingers out. Can't believe you've no remade Red Redemption 1. What are you played at? You've got half of the map made already. Come on, get your fingers out your arse.
They've done such a good job with their Grand Theft Auto remakes. They really
I know, but they are start
have to
up.
get on with
That's
this.
their fault.
Have to get on with it. I just not really much I can really add or say. I think we covered a wee bit about our Red Dead and the kind of top PlayStation games episode that we've done as well. So
I think only one way I think to say is it's such a shame that the online is rubbish. I really struggled with it online. I thought there was too much griefing in it. I just wish it was more just about like here hang about with your pals and just go and do some cowboy stuff. I really hated. I mean, literally when I first turned that online on, like 3 times in a row, somebody just tied me up. And it's funny, but see when you're just literally started, it's like that's the last thing you need is somebody just pure griefing you straight away when you've literally got nothing. But Hoodie, you obviously played a lot more than we did online, more people and stuff. So maybe you could put a wee bit of insight.
So I got near the end of the story, And then they were like, "Oh, there's like 40 more hours," and I was like, I appreciate it. I appreciate what they did here. I can't finish this, so then I just jumped onto the online, and that was when it was in the beta phase. And I feel like they had so many more pros than cons in that beta phase that when they did launch it, they just fucked it all up. Where I played it when the economy was still being adjusted here and there, but it was resourceful enough where I could get things and actually feel like I'm participating in this world actively, similar to like Grand Theft Auto, where I never feel like I'm low on money. And that's even aside from like the free money they give you. Like, I never feel like I'm suffering in that world where, and maybe that's just a part of their immersion, but I fucking hate that about Red Dead's online economy, where I feel like I'm actively suffering, like I live in the 1800s, and I don't want to live there. I want to be able to buy a fucking hat. Okay, let me buy a hat, put my hat on, and call myself a cowboy. But no, everything in that's too expensive. And then you get to the griefing part, and the griefing's horrible. They've toned it down by adding like a semi-flaccid passive mode. Like, it's not really a passive mode.
What a class word to use, flaccid. Describe
Well, I
something.
mean, it's such a lipstick move of a passive mode versus how they had it in Grand Theft Auto, where you could literally be invisible to everybody else and they can't
Aye.
kill you. You're like a ghost.
Aye.
And in Red Dead, it's like, yeah, they can't shoot you if, kind of, maybe. Like, oh, but they could run you over with a horse. Well, then what's the point? There's so many things in that online that are so broken, but when it's that sad reality that when you get together with friends, it's super fucking fun. Like, it's a really fun world. Why does everything else in it have to suck? And they don't care about it, and they completely detach themselves from it. And it was like they made a sandbox, put like a quarter sand in it, and said we were going to fill the rest up, but we forgot, and we just don't care now. And do whatever you're going to do. We don't care about you. We're going back to Grand Theft Auto. And it's like, well, you're just leaving everything broken and not giving anybody an option to at least have fun in it with what they have. They have roles now, which are cool enough in concept, but don't really make me feel like I'm any more part of that world. I think Bounty Hunters is the one that I'm the closest to, where I'm like, at least they give me a badge. Like, I feel like I'm a part of the law, I guess, in that world if I want to play that. Or I can be a complete dickhead and become hunted by bounty hunters, and that's cool, I guess. You could be an archaeologist, which is, there if you want to go look for bones, but that's exhausting to do. You can do the zoology thing, but nothing works on the same level it does in the single player. And at that point, I just think, well, why don't I just be in the single player world? Because
Aye, that's what I
super
felt.
immersive. That's super fun. Like, if you don't have those friends and you're just playing online, there's no point to play online because you don't gain gold fast enough. Like, you'd have to play 6 hours a day just to get enough gold to do anything in there. Like, all of that economy is so broken. But, Gary said the whole world of Red Dead Redemption 2 is so immersive in a way that's unlike anything else. I mean, it really is alive. It is the polar opposite of Cyberpunk, where, like you say, oh, you just walking down a street and there's, people being mauled by wolves. Like, that just happens dynamically, and that's insane to think about, all the little details that are in that game that you could spend 2 hours talking about and still never scratch the surface of what they did there. It's super impressive, but the online, they just fumbled so hard. I've never seen somebody go from Grand Theft Auto 5, one of the greatest online services probably in gaming, and then immediately make this whatever this is. And you could easily adopt so many of the systems from Grand Theft Auto 5, from the passive mode to the economy, but they just don't. And they go, screw you. And I don't know why. It was, yeah. But the rest of the game's great,
I enjoyed. I'm the same. I tried it again. Maybe this year, I can't remember, but I tried it again, and I think I don't know. I think I lasted one day. I was in a menu, and I was standing amongst trees, well out the road, and when I was in that menu, somebody fucking hatcheted me, and killed me. So I'm no
Yeah.
I'm not an advocate for online. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So then on to myself for the number one pick. My only 2022 game that I've brought to the table, I should say, 2 weeks after its release, sold more 12 million units worldwide.
Oh, what?
96 on the Metacritic. That's nothing to be snuffed. Deathloop it is, yep. What a game that is. No, we're going to Bandai Namco from Software, Elden Ring. I just, honestly, I wasn't sure on the run up to Elden Ring's release, so I'm quite thankful that I wasn't sure, because the hype, and I mean, that speaks itself. You know, 2 weeks after it released, 12 million copies. I think a further 5.5 sold between then and November, so 17.5 collectively. It's some amount of copies that's been shipped for Elden Ring. A good game that's come out in a relatively quiet year for gaming, and it's really took me by surprise, to be honest, because, like I said, I wasn't paying too much attention to Elden Ring. I was considering it, and then for my birthday, shout out to Al Predator Tribesman, does the intro and outro music, as I'm sure you guys will be aware listening to the end of the podcast. But Al had sent me a PSN gift card for my 30th this year, so I thought, well, do you know what? That's kind of seals the deal. It's virtually for the amount of what Elden Ring was going to be. So picked that up, and I honestly I could not put it back down. I stopped playing Horizon for it. I thought to myself, I'm going to try this game out, see how I feel. Maybe I'll jump back to Horizon. Maybe I'll stick with this, and I don't know. I just couldn't stop playing it for the life of me. I'll probably start off with the only negative I have with the game, which is that it just doesn't really direct or guide you in any way, which was a wee bit frustrating at times, because I'm like, I have no idea where I'm supposed to be going in this game. But to be honest, the fact that it didn't tell you that they were going to guide or tell you where to go kind of helps in terms of like side quests and other missions and things, and that you could open up the map and it was just this completely nice and clean map. You didn't actually see any of the rest of the map until you actually went there. And even when you did, it wasn't filled with all these different cursors and things to do. It's just areas and different things that you're like, I don't know what that is. Is that something, or is it just the shape of the rock, or is it one of those kind of underground boss kind of things? Like, I mean, I won't go into the whole kind of thesis of the game. People listening to this, people who are kind of familiar with games will know Elden Ring is obviously one of the kind of Souls games where it's typically just boss fights, and if you're looking for a good laugh, check out my Twitch for some of the celebrations of sheer joy after spending hours, 2 or 3 hours on single boss fights, dying upwards of 50 times in a boss fight, and the sheer joy that would come from taking down some of these boss fights. A really good run into the end of the boss fights. A good queue of bosses to fight. The last one being a kind of double header. We had to kind of fight two bosses in the one kind of life, which was very, very difficult, very challenging, but very rewarding. On a personal kind of level, when I'd played games like Bloodborne before, and not finished them, or played the original kind of Demon Souls, and only really getting so far with that as well. Like Elden Ring kind of captured the kind of essence of boss fighting, but without have the cumbersome kind of nature of trying to do like a full level. When you compare it to like Demon Souls and you try to do like just say like 45 minutes to an hour, you're running through this level and then you finally get to the boss fight and they just slaps you and you die, and then you start again with half your health. You're like, oh, really? I need to try and get, and you try to like just rush your way through the level to try and get your souls back or whatever, and somebody trips you up on the way there and you die. It really is that unforgiving, these kind of games. So it's not everybody's cup of tea, but in terms of Elden Ring, like, I just feel like they've done everything right. They put a lot of these kind of campfires around the place, made it so that you could save, and multiple different places. Like even you could get to some boss dungeons and actually manage to take a save right as you were doing it, so you could you really could do like a boss fight a couple of times and then not really have to um not have to keep playing. You could just switch it off and try it again the next day. In terms of weapons and stuff like that, there was basically an endless possibility combinations of the weapons. I tended to go lean towards the same sword all the time because I had a few kind of special moves. Using the kind of back triggers, you could kind of hit an enemy and do a backflip to kind of evade and keep your distance. And then if you had the mana for it, the magic, you could kind of press that L to distance yourself, and then press another button, and it would do a kind of fade attack. And again, this is all stuff that you couldn't. It didn't tell you any of this stuff. You just kind of figured it out by doing different things and pressing different buttons. So it was quite exciting being part of that. And such a big game, and everybody having their own things and their own play styles, and you're experiencing all the different nerfing as well. How somebody done it, like say Ben and things who played it before me. They were like, oh, you need to get this mimic thing, and by the time I got to do that, the mimic tier was kind of nerfed and it wasn't quite as good. So I think even people starting to play it now would have a a totally different time than how I played it the first time round. And that's actually one of the points as well. As much as highly as I've spoke about the game, I genuinely I'm not 100% sure that I could play it again, because I feel like even though there's an endless possibility in combinations of weapons and different things and different ways that you would start it and stuff, I just it was 80, 90 hours or something like that I played of it, so I've definitely got my my PSN vouchers worth. But just I think for me, I was so comfortable in playing that style with that weapon that I'm not entirely sure that I could play it any other way. I liked it and really enjoyed it. I don't want to go now play it as a mage or anything like that. If anything, I would maybe do the new game plus and keep the same play style, and maybe go and do the bosses that I didn't do the first time round. There's a few optional bosses in there, and I didn't kind of complete those. But I would say it would take many years for me to pick that back up again, and I'd be more inclined to instead maybe visit Sekiro or Neo, or one of these kind of games, like where it's those kind of difficult games, but in the same kind of vein. But I think for me, the loop was probably the biggest thing about it. A couple of points here and there really made the difference in your skill trees. In terms of what you were leveling up, and the multipliers that it would carry through for your weapons. I think in the end up, when I was, I felt like I was really preparing and getting ready for the end boss fights, because you have to, you've got, not only do you level up, but you can increase the the multipliers, the strength and things like that. But you can upgrade your weapons, so you can go and find various different stones, which would then upgrade your sword and your kind of magic ability. So for me, it was the kind of mimic tier, which is it creates an exact copy of you, but it's a reduced it has a reduced health. I don't think it did that on the original kind of run before they kind of nerfed that item, but it creates basically a copy of you, so you're kind of double teaming the bosses, which is something another thing that you need to upgrade with a different collectible. So I felt like I was really rocky in it. I was running up and down these steps, trying to make sure I had everything absolutely spot on, and I still get my ass handed to me with those last two boss fights. So, but it's something that honestly, everybody that I've kind of spoke to about the game who's played it absolutely adored it. Mrs. Mac's friend Amy had picked the game up. She fell in love with it, and then speaking to brother-in-law as well, he picked the game up. I think he's played it 2 or 3 times now over the past month and change, because he adored it as well. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I don't think my 2 co-hosts are overly enthralled to play such a kind of challenging game. Not only, I don't doubt that they would have the ability and time to take it on, but I think it's just a combination of things between patience and that kind of style, if you like. But it's just one of those things you need. It's a bit more committed than a general game, and I think in the end, everybody kind of defines fun in different ways, and for some, even Gary watching me on the Twitch streams and stuff, I'm sure there was 1 or 2 times that he'd said, he's like, I don't know how you can play these games. He's like, it's like a kind of glutton for punishment in some ways.
I get frustrated watching people, never mind playing it.
So it's something for me that again, it's probably turned me on to those kind of games, and I'm really excited to see what From Software bring to the table with their next kind of releases and stuff. But for me, I'm definitely in the mood to go back and try some of these other games. But I think in the back of my mind, I'm still clinging on to a new game plus.
What nah? Even Elden Ring.
Even the Elden Ring, exactly. Hoodie, have you got any thoughts before I move on to the honourable mentions? Would you ever dare to try the Elden Ring?
I would not, but I did watch Ben play most of this game. We were in a party chat and he screen shared for me, and it was an experience to watch. I mean, it is a epic game, and very much that thing of even listening to you play through it where, oh, come on, oh, God, okay, and you're trying over and over, but then when you get to that last hit and you finally beat, I think you were fighting a fire dragon or something, and
no, man,
you go, oh, yes. Like, oh, okay. It's great just to hear friends do that, like yourself or Ben, where it's like I was legitimately invested in just listening to you guys overcome these like trials, like a crucible. So I loved the game just from that perspective. So
good. Absolutely fuck that fire giant, by the way, man. Absolutely fuck him. That was all I can say about that bit of that game. One of the worst fucking bosses I've ever fought. I hated that. I don't know how many times like you get to near the end and the cunt starts rolling about a giant, a massive giant rolling about. How the fuck am I supposed to move out his road? Anyway, forget it. Right, it's done.
It must have been at least 40 times that I heard until it was finally in that party chat.
at least 40. That was probably the third night of me trying. But so what about you, Gary? Before I move on, it's not. I know it's not your street, but
I will never ever let this game cross my PlayStation. This game would try me 100 times before I even let it go in my mind. No, honestly, games like that, as I said, I get frustrated just watching people, never mind anything else. I was watching Sean play it on Twitch and stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, how can you even play this? And I was like, oh, this is just abuse. This isn't even playing. You know, right now I'm playing God of War 2018 because I want to play it before I play the new God of War, and I'm trying to play and do all the Valkyries right now, and oh my god, just play and I would say they're probably not as hard as any of the bosses you've fought in Elden Ring, but my god, man, some of them are hard. I'm like 3 down. I'm 3 down so far, and I'm like, oh, I've got a 4th one, and she's kicking my hole, man.
that game took me 3 years to get the platinum because I got so frustrated with the final Valkyrie that I put it down and I never walked back to it until like, Ragnarok's coming out. All right, I'll get the platinum at this point. Those Valkyries were no joke.
I've been booted out my sandals about 7 times after this one that I've been playing now. Honestly, it's been terrible.
So yep, Elden Ring, my favourite game, for sure, favourite game that I've played. Even as we kick off into the honourable mentions in just a moment, I don't think anything would have topped this game for me personally. It's it just took me by surprise. I think that's a really good way of coming into games, and we don't really get that opportunity anymore to to do that. And a game, usually you know of a game coming out, or the anticipation of a game, and that definitely weighs into how you kind of play things. But to remove the expectation, to remove the cost element of it as well, being up front there with that as well. I'm not sure if I would have put my money where my mouth was if I hadn't. I probably would have just stuck to Horizon. Maybe if I'd the amount I'd heard people talking about it, I maybe would have been intrigued and influenced, as easy as I often am. But I can't speak highly enough of our Elden Ring. Right, okay, so honourable mentions. We're going to reverse the order. So Hoodie's finishing up the pod. I'm going to just run straight in to the honourable mentions, as we're calling it. So games that we didn't play, didn't get to, or played and felt like either just missed out, or for other reasons we kind of kept them off, and I'll just have a kind of quick run through the list. We're 3.5 hours into the pod anyway, so we'll not keep you too much longer. I'm going to run through mine and just give either a quick reason for why it didn't quite make the list, or a quick comment on them. But I wanted to start with this one because I felt like it was a wee bit kind of cheaty. I know, and it's no I dig towards guy who put Red Dead on, but I felt like I just couldn't put Skyrim on this list. Like, I know for 2 reasons. I played it before a few times. Plus, can you fucking really complete Skyrim? You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much stuff to it. As much as I kind of played that boss fight on the stream and whatever else, I just felt like it just wasn't one of those games that I wanted to throw onto the list. Equally so, like I've been speaking about, playing games on iPad and stuff like that through Game Pass. A little console version of Football Manager came out, and I think I must have played about 20 hours already in the first weekend. But I just felt like there's I don't feel like it's a game more than it's a lifestyle, as Gary can attest to, for Football Manager. So I just kind of kept that waiting in the wings, for lack of a better term. God of War, obviously, I've only really played the first kind of a portion of that. I probably would have placed quite highly. I'm really enjoying it, but just one of those things. We've not played enough of it for the for the pod, so we'll get back to that, and I'm sure it'll place quite highly off of what I've played so far. I've played a few. I've spoken about a few of these games on the podcast already, and Lost Judgment, Grounded, and Cult of the Lamb. Those games I've all kind of spoken about on previous episodes on the What Have You Been Playing segments, which is a good wide variety. I would say Grounded stood a very good chance of placing number 2 actually on my list, purely because it's such a special game. Again, it's a as Gary refers to them as honey, I've shrunk the kids kind of thing. You're kind of tiny and you're moving around this map, this garden, which feels like a metropolis at times. And myself and Hoodie have played a wee bit of it. It's kind of difficult, very difficult, but it's kind of tricks you into thinking it's a fucking kids game that you're playing. But it is disturbingly fucking difficult. But again, I would recommend it. Tinykin we spoke about, but that was very close to making the list as well. But I felt like because I didn't finish it with those the last two kind of worlds, I decided to give Heavenly Bodies the kind of position instead. So I've also got on the list here Nobody Saves the World, which is the last kind of Xbox game. I got a good bit into that, and that's an appropriate response by Hoodie there. It's a really good game, a really nice art style, and a really good progressive kind of form in that game where you're unlocking different characters as you progress through the story. If depending on how you're playing with that character, you then are able to upgrade them or unlock the next one, and depending on how much you want to play with a particular character, the tree kind of branches in different directions, so that you end up picking a whole host of different characters and different abilities and ranges and things like that. So for me, that's one of the most one of the games that I've found the most kind of difficult to go back to, purely because of different games that have been on the go at the time. But it's one of the games that I'm most kind of remiss to not have went back and played the rest of it.
That is a great shout.
Aye, so good, really good. I really enjoyed it. I played it on stream, which was really fun to kind of talk to people about it as I was playing it and discovering the different elements of it. Speaking of streaming, the other game that I streamed that I wanted to include on this was Outlast. It's a relatively kind of old game, is Outlast, but I just had so much fun playing that game. Between the jump scares and everything else, it was just a whole, a really good time. Just playing through that, it was quick enough. There was a lot of, as I've mentioned, the actual jump scares, as well as the ones on the built into my Twitch for the channel points. But the actual jump scares and the different things on there created a lot of good moments for me. Got a lot of good community kind of moments, and I felt like it was a game worth mentioning. Myself and Hoodie played a good bit of this with Ben, but I couldn't leave out Riders Republic. I did enjoy that game very much, and it's one that's still in the backlog for me, if I'm honest with you, in terms of not giving up on it. It's almost been a year probably since I last played it, but it's just one of those games. I think once I've got a wee bit of time, it could very much be a sports game to me. That kind of being able to pick it up and do a couple of races. Speaking of sports games, the very last game on the list for me is WWE 2K22. Such a strong entry from WWE. I really enjoyed the different game modes that they put into it this year. It lended to a few good streams for me while I was working through the kind of towers, if you like, if for lack of a better term, when you're playing the different fights to then unlock different cards and all that kind of stuff. It's a pretty fun meta inside a WWE game on a time where I've kind of fallen away from WWE. It was a pretty good title, and I wish that games like that would have been available a few years ago when I was a wee bit more into wrestling rather than their kind of downturn and demise in the last WWE game where I didn't even buy it. I just listened to Gary telling me about all the funny things that would happen to the glitches and stuff. So, so that's me. Honourable mentions. Like I said, we'll try and not keep you long, but I think some of those games there, on any given day, actually, any given day of reflection, my list itself probably could have changed. I actually changed order this morning. I wrote it all a few days ago and actually changed the order. So it's again probably like yourselves. Apart from Hoodie, he was set in stone what his number one was. But no, for me, Elden Ring was always going to be number one. But the rest of them probably could have fluctuated on any given day. And I think that list of honourable mentions, a lot of them probably could have crept their way in to the list for sure. So, anybody get any comments on my list before we move on to Gary's?
I think you've had great picks on there. Nobody Saves the World. Great shout. Grounded is another one that was just so much fun. For the little amount that I was able to play it with you and Johnny, just a blast. I mean, even though I was like actively dying inside, not being able to make a hat because a spider kept killing me. I really loved the experience of that, and I'm excited to go back to it again when I pick up Game Pass again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. What about yourself, Gary? Any of them shock you for even being placed, or shock you for no making its way into the list?
Nah, they're all shite.
Yeah, they are.
No, I was quite hyped about the WWE. I don't think I've ever actually asked you about that. I knew you were playing it, and I obviously watched the streams and stuff. But I was quite surprised that it's in your honourable mentions.
Aye.
Actually,
good.
I seen it on the Black Friday sale for PlayStation, and I was like, now I meant to
I
ask
would.
you, so it's just funny. It's just funny that you said that.
Aye, I would.
But no, that was a good list as well. As you said, these lists can change any day, and I'm sure on a different day they would. But yep.
Aye, for sure. Right, so honourable mentions, mate. What's on your list?
So my honourable mentions, starting off with Final Fantasy VII Remake. So Final Fantasy, I don't know what the new one is, 16 maybe. When the advert came out for it, the trailer. Watched it and I thought to myself, this is time for me to get into Final Fantasy. So why not go for 7, which is probably everybody's favourite. So I went for the 7 remake. So didn't make this list because I never finished it. It is a long ass game, and it's a game that actually was really engrossed in. The characters are brilliant, but it's extremely anime, like extremely like pure Japanese cheese. In there. So if you're not into that, then you'll not be into this game whatsoever. The fighting is actually much better than I ever thought it would be. Because I know it was kind of like a tactics game when it first came out. When I knew it's kind of like an action tactics game. And I actually found myself at the start, I was like, I don't really get what I'm supposed to be doing here. But soon enough, you're like, all right, heal this person. Oh, a wee bit of potion there, and you actually feel yourself starting to do tactics and learning the way to combat and stuff like that. It was a really good game. It was too long. I think I was 40 hours in. I think I only had 2 chapters left. But by that point, I was just like, I just can't anymore. You just get to that point with some games, and this just unfortunately, it just hit that point with this game, and I just was like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah.
My next one is Stray. So I picked this up. It was just one of I think it was a PlayStation Plus game or something like that at the time.
Extra? Extra.
Aye. So I picked that up. It was a really fun game. I'm mimicking Hoodie, what you said earlier. You play games sometimes just to experiences you've never had before. I don't think I've ever played as a cat before in the game. This cat is just going about this futuristic world that's run by robots. The robots are extremely cute in this game, and you're just helping them just do whatever tasks and whatever, just silly stuff. But it's a really good game. It's no hard. It's no, it's kind of puzzly, but it's no, it's just a game. It's kind of like a wee journey you're just on. It's no there to keep you there for ages. You're just kind of going this journey of this cat, and it's really good. Nice wee world, and it's probably about 8 hours long, so you can easily finish it in 2 sittings. That's Stray. The next game I played was Maneater. So sharks only bite when you touch their private parts. Wrong. No, Maneater. I mean, if you've ever played a hungry shark, you know what you're getting in for. Maneater is just a game you're literally just eating and eating and eating as a shark. I actually didn't realise how much a game it would be because there's actually like bosses and like some sort of tactics for fighting, like crocodiles and stuff like that, and boats and whatever else. I think the game at the start is quite slow, but towards the end, when you start to become a massive shark, that's when the game becomes most fun. Because stuff that you struggled with at the start, you just destroy, and then you're starting to get the really hard stuff like whales and whatever else, like the big predators. So it's a game. It's a great game for like hopping on and hopping off. That's what I used it for. It was that. If I got 30 minutes to an hour, right, just put Maneater on, just chomp my way through everybody. Yep, that was another game. Another game this year was Guardians of the Galaxy. I put this on my honourable mentions. It was I felt like this game was a really good. It was strong. It was a strong game. The characters were amazing in this game. When I first put it on, I was very like thrown because it's like Guardians of the Galaxy, but like Square Enix's Guardians of the Galaxy. So that kind of threw me because obviously I've only had kind of the movie Guardians of the Galaxy, but playing it and you start to realise the relationships they've got and where they are in Square Enix's kind of timeline. You're starting to get it all together, and it just their bonds and stuff like that through this game. That's what I was playing this for. The gameplay's alright as well. It's quite fast paced in action, but you're Star Lord for the entire game, and probably about I don't know how long game is, maybe 25 hours. By probably like the 18 hours mark, I was starting to be like, right, I can only slide about this map for so long in jetpack. I'm starting to get bored of the actual Star Lord's combat. But everything else with it, the story was good. The only thing is, I wish they kind of lent into more. I wouldn't say R-rated. I'm not expecting like blood and guts and stuff like that. But I think Guardians of the Galaxy is always a bit cheeky, and I felt like for the gameplay they muted it a wee bit because they knew that it was going to be for children as well. Like you'd be shooting stuff, but it'd just be like flashes happening to them. There's no blood or nothing, and I'm not expecting it to be like Kratos like ripping somebody in half. But I just, I always think Guardian of the Galaxy's got that wee cheeky edge to it, and I think they could have played into that a wee bit more with the combat. I have to say, my favourite character in this entire thing was Mantis. I didn't think I would like her because I didn't like her in the movie, but my god, Mantis in this game is one of the best characters in this entire game. Every time she was on, she was making me laugh. I was just laughing every time she was on. She was saying something stupid, and she was amazing. My next one, and it's my final one, is Ghost of Tsushima Iki Island DLC. So I played the entire Ghost of Tsushima, but I was the Iki Island I really want to talk about because that was the first time I ever played that. Iki Island is perfect for Ghost of Tsushima. If you've ever played Ghost of Tsushima, this just fleshes out parts of the story that I just didn't think it would. I thought it was just going to be like a wee random DLC. Oh, something's happening in this island, you need to come and help. But no, it literally tells you the full story about Jin's dad dying, and it fleshes that entire story out, and you get this full new part, this information that you didn't really know in the main story. Also, going through Iki Island looks it's obviously still just an island and it's quite nature, but it looks completely different. They've just used a total different colour palette. It looks a wee bit more fantasy, but it just fits somehow. I think the way Ghost of Tsushima is, it lingers on that realistic fantasy like kind of line. It toes on it. And they kind of go more fantasy week island, but it just suits it so well, and it's just completely different for Tsushima Island, which is just what you needed. Also, they added like new cool armor sets. There's awesome armor sets in this, awesome masks and stuff for Jin, and it's a wee spoiler, but you get armor for your horse, and it looks absolutely amazing, man. He's like dressed up as like a big dragon. Oh, it's so cool! It's the coolest thing ever. Especially in that game, because that's another game that you name your horse, and you've got your horse for the entire story. So you're building a relationship with a horse. So you want your noble steed to look as cool as possible, and with this DLC, you will. Also added new enemy types. They've kind of got like magey kind of people in it, but it's not like they don't deal with magic. It's more like they can put people in trances and stuff like that. They put people in like battle trances, so then they don't get hurt when you hit them. So you need to try and take out the mage first. So it's a wee bit different for tactics wise. Just added that wee extra wee layer on top of what was already there. We'd be like, oh, this is a guy with a bazooka, or just adding something pure random. They just thought it's similar, but just tweaked a wee bit. It's an engaging story with another good enemy. It's another a Mongol leader in. It's a woman actually, and she's fantastic in this as well. Another person that you just love to hate. And that's my what was that again? Honourable mentions.
You're doing so well there. Awesome. Hoodie then rounding us up for the honourable mentions. What almost made your last one?
So any of these could have. I think they all are for mainly friend reasons. They're amplified. The first one, not because of friends, but it's God of War Ragnarok. I'm 26 hours in. I think it's an amazing story. I really love the world. I'm very annoyed at a lot of I've walked into another room and I've got to fight more people. Okay, we're doing this a lot. It's never ending. I've walked into another room. Oh, here's more. I wish I could walk into a room and say no and then walk out, because it's really starting to frustrate me. But the story is amazing and the world is amazing, and I'm loving the odyssey of this game. The next one I played with Jillian, Escape Academy. Incredible experience.
Nice.
One of the best co-op games I've ever played, and I couldn't have played it with a better person. We had a blast all the way through. I know we've said it forever. We'll go back and get the rest of the achievements. We will eventually, but it was so much fun. If they ever release a second one, immediately buy it, play it with Jillian. It's so much fun. I absolutely loved that experience. The third one was Golf with Your Friends, another game that I've played with everybody, and it's always a blast. There's just endless amounts of laughs that we've had playing it. It's really like a miniature golf, and you get these weird courses, and there's castles or dragons, blah 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 blah. There's a bouncy course, like a bouncy house. It's really fun. Just an incredible time that I put hours into with friends, where it's just like we are laughing our heads off and finding ways to trick the course and cheese it and get our balls into holes that they're just not supposed to be in, phrasing. But
I was going to say Gary does that.
It was a great time. Psychonauts 2, I wanted to put on my list. I was just trying so hard. It's not that it's long. It's not a long game. It's just longer than I thought it was. So I couldn't beat it in time. My Game Pass ran out, so I was like, okay, eventually I'll get back to this and I'll finish it. I absolutely loved Psychonauts 2. Sea of Thieves is another one on my list that I adored playing with you. I played with T-Rex Can Swim Brian. we had a blast. I really enjoyed playing that because I hadn't played it before. Didn't have any friends who had it, so being able to jump into it this year, it was great experience. Two more. Power Wash Simulator, a game
Oh,
I
nice.
really considered to put on my this. This got so close to taking out Superliminal. An unreasonable amount of closeness in between these two, where it's like you wouldn't think, but boy, was Power Wash Simulator so gratifying. Oh my gosh, I don't know what they did for this game, but it was like it was an orgasmic experience when you cleaned an entire car. Like it was so good and satisfying, and you get the little crevices and you use different levels of power to wash things and get soaps, and the soaps do more washing. I don't know, man. There's something about it. It's on Game Pass. Play it if you can. It's it is a unique experience. The last one I played all the way through with Ben, The Quarry, which, wow, what a great start to a game and a horrible finish. One of the worst endings to a game. And I know there are multiple endings in quotes, but wow, we got to the end and we were just shit talking the whole way through, and it was a blast to do that. We were just like ragging on this game. We did not because it starts out so strong. Like it's such an amazing first half of this game, and by the end, we were like, "Ooh." I tell you what, man, I don't know if we can make it. I was like, no. Only got like 2 more hours. Let's just push through. Let's power through. And by the end, we're finally there, and I fucked the whole thing up. I flicked left instead of right, and all of our characters died, and it was all my fault. You know, it was a fitted ending to the horrible experience at the end of that game. But it was a blast to play with men. So those were honorable mentions that most of them co-op. I highly recommend if you got a friend, if you got a partner, if you got a stranger off the street that you just met while you're walking back from the grocery store, say, hey, do you want to golf with me? We can be friends that way, and do it. It's they're great games. Had a great time. Great year of cooperative and friend games.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of deliberately left Sea of Thieves off just purely because I kind of played it last year and this year and spoke about it a few times already on the kind of podcasts and stuff. It's just it's a really good co-op game. You can play it yourself, but it's nowhere near as good. But obviously, I play it quite a lot with Andy Mac, friend of the show, and something that something that I would love to. I've honestly, I love playing it with yourself as well, Hoodie. But I'd love it if, for the 3 years to be able to. I know that's probably never going to be possible, but it's just one of the games that it's the more the merrier, and it would be some laugh. So thanks again to co-host. It's been a fucking knockout episode as usual, a very lengthy one as we anticipated.
Guthrie boy.
Almost it's a definite one. Yep. Almost clocking in at 4 hours here at this one, with the amount of different things that we were speaking about with the game. So really appreciate it if you've listened to this point. You are for sure a real one. Keep an eye out, as we mentioned at the start of the episode. Keep a wee eye out for the merch. Hopefully coming next year at some point. We'll not put a date on it and that, no pressure. These guys are going to be taking good care of you. You're all looking absolutely smashing in your cracking Vault Dwellers gear. That's it for us. We'll be back in December, hopefully the middle of December, before Christmas, of course, as we talk about our Christmas memories, and we will be reviewing Home Alone. Until next time, take care, guys.
I will say, all of our top fives are over, but I just want you to know you're top one in my heart, always. And if you have a top five, leave it down in the comments below. Welcome back.
Goodbye, children.
Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Vault Dwellers Podcast. You can keep up with Gary Moore at Gary Moore's Art over on Instagram. Keep up with myself, Twitter, on Twitch at MrMac92, and you can't keep up with Hoodie at The Penny Marvels over on Instagram. A very special shout out to Al the Predator Tribesman for creating the intro and outro music. Thanks again for listening. Take care. Bye.